Hello folks, there is no intro because we're diving straight into this tier list, and we're hoping Kiefer's going to turn up a bit later on. I think he's in the land of Nod right now, but I'm joined, at least initially, by the Outer Circle. Marco, how's it going, man?
Yeah, good. Yourself, man?
Excellent. Dying of
I
hay
mean, we're
fever.
pretending like we haven't said hello before,
Dude, yeah, we've
recording,
been on a
but
half an hour call before this. It's like, hey, it's fancy seeing you here. Yeah, but I'm dying of hay fever, so if I have a little sneeze or if my microphone goes off, that's why. But today, we are doing a Horus Heresy Legion tier list, but not just any Legion tier list. It is a Legion tier list where we're going to be taking into account the lore and tabletop rules of every single one of these legions before we place them on our board here. You're probably telling why we needed Maka of all people for this one. But yeah, we are starting off with the Thousand Sons. So we're going from their lore first, and then we're going to their rules on the tabletop. So, first of all, what do you reckon of Thousand Sons as a whole right now in Horus Heresy? Especially if we're going into 3.0 as well, which is the big rumour, the big thing. What are you thinking of Thousand Sons right now in the zeitgeist?
so Thousand Sons themselves are, in game terms, the most awful of the legions coming out of the basic books, rules-wise. Their way that psychic powers work are far less convoluted than last edition, so all that part's good. But unlike other Legionnaires Astartes who have their abilities baked into them, like if you're an Imperial Fist, you immediately are better at shooting. You're an Imperial Fist. If you're an Iron Warrior and you see a tank, you just natively seem to know how to kill it harder. But when you're a Thousand Sun, it's no, you have to roll to see if you have an ability that goes off each turn. And if you mess up that roll and it goes pear-shaped, it will just blow the sergeant of the squad up, like he's an ISIS member. And then after that has occurred, the squad no longer has access to their rules at all. So from that standpoint, it's just three different kinds of what the hell. In addition to that, they've had some huge nerfs to their cult powers that really cement what their abilities are on the tabletop, which obviously plays very, very poorly in this edition because of it. And therefore, if you want to succeed playing Thousand Sons this edition, you have to lean into things like telepathy in the core rulebook psychic powers. But that is an oppressive discipline because what it allows you to do is cast abilities which stop the enemy units from being able to do anything. They just sit still. They can't move, they can't shoot, they can't react, they do nothing that turn. And so you're using your units to take away the core gameplay mechanics of someone else. And if you're the person on the receiving end, that is just very oppressive. So as a Thousand Sons player, it's either suck it up and just take losses on the chin because you are just worse than everyone else, or play a list which becomes just oppressive to go up against. And there's no in-between ground on that, unfortunately.
So I'm thinking in terms of rules. We're going from C to D tier. Which one do you reckon we're throwing them in terms of rules?
Oh, whatever the lowest tier is.
Okay,
there's
D.
only
Okay.
an absolute one legion that is worse that I can think of.
Alrighty, so the most I can really give them, if their lore is spot on, is B at this moment in time, right? So, I'm not going to give them that because their lore in general is an absolute, how do I put this? They fumbled the bag big time. I never get this. Like, the Games Workshop, the Black Library are allowed to change whatever they like in the Horus Heresy because it's their universe. And there are certain points that they do change, right? There are certain points in the lore that the Alanius Pius being one, right? There's certain points in the lore that they think, oh, that's a bit messy. Why don't we give it a definitive answer? Or we change it to being something else entirely. Okay, that's fine. But then there are other parts of the lore where they just mind-bogglingly stick to doctrine throughout, even if it's terrible. Magnus refusing to fight against the Space Wolves because he's been a bad boy is one of the most shockingly stupid things to happen in the Horus Heresy. That basically undermines and tanks the entire Thousand Sons arc. It's just done at that point. you're rolling your eyes and burning a Prospero, just like, okay, dude, or Prospero burn, just like, dude, this is silly. This is just silly.
I can redeem it for you a little bit, in that if you look at it from the perspective of Magnus understands that every time he tries to do something, it's like a curling finger on the monkey's paw, because Tzeentch is just dicking with him. And so the last thing that Tzeentch expects was for Magnus to sit back and do nothing at Prospero. The idea was that the Thousand Sons, including Magnus, would go all out on the Space Wolves. This was the Chaos plan, and it would eliminate the Space Wolves Legion entirely from even Custodes, Valdor, the works, Janisha Kroll, and the Sisters of Silence, all of them dead at Prospero. And the two forces essentially annihilate one another. That was the plan for Magnus's Legion from Chaos. And so by sitting back, he actually allowed the Space Wolves to have a clear victory, although they did lose oppressively huge numbers. That was prior to his intervention. That was without the Thousand Sons being ready for the attack. So you can only imagine what would have happened if they were ready for the Space Wolves attack. That was the plan, was just complete annihilation, both forces dead, and then you imagine what Horus's journey is like from that point on, if there is now no longer the Space Wolves to interfere in his plans, and there's Custodes are even more depleted, and they don't have Valdor. The Sisters of Silence are destroyed, and they don't have Kroll. What this means for the war in the Webway and the Siege of Terror itself has huge ramifications. So apparently, by the way, Tzeentch was also greatly amused by this because he hadn't foreseen it coming.
So I agree in the actual overall story, away from the book being something that you can swallow. Okay, I can see that. My problem is not with the footnotes, the keynotes. My problem is with the execution. So the execution in the book makes Magnus look like an absolute artard. He looks like a moron, like throughout the entire thing. His motivations for why he's powering down and why he's saying, look, I'm not going to do this, are very, very, very self-defeating. They're very self-pitying. There's no logic there. There's no, well, the Tzeentch will be expecting me to do this, so I'm not going to do it, right? He doesn't say that. He just goes along with it. He just says, no, I'm not going to do anything because I'm sulking, right? I deserve this. He honestly believes that he deserves what's coming. That's why he powers down the defenses. So if they stuck to what you just said, Maka, and you've looked at the themes of what's going on, the deeper themes, and you've correctly assumed that that's what's going on. Okay, we're doing that with dramatic irony. We know what's going on, right? The wider stage of things. Magnus at this point doesn't. So the decisions that he makes are eye-rolling. They're like, dude, just tell us what's going on. That kind of a thing. And beyond that, them being out of the Horus Heresy kind of neuters their lore a little bit to me. So I think what I'm going to do is put them in C tier. I'm trying to do it on the actual recording there. There we go. Put it on C tier. Just to keep it, keep it there so people aren't thinking we're dinking on them too much. Your explanation of it has bumped it up from D tier to C tier. There you go.
They'll take the win. It's the only one they get in this edition.
Well, there you go. Maybe any edition. Right, next it is Alpha Legion. Alrighty, this one is going to be very interesting from a rule standpoint. Alpha Legion, where are they right now in Horus Heresy?
Their rules are a fantastic middle ground where if you're playing as the Alpha Legion and you use the rules smartly, they will reward you. If you're playing as Alpha Legion and your positioning is terrible, all over the place, then you're going to get punished by your opponent, because the way their rules work, essentially, it changes the range of everything that happens around them by about 2 inches. In fact, it's not by about, it is 2 inches. So if you're shooting at someone with bolt guns 24 inches away, they won't be able to shoot you because they'll be shooting back at you 22 inches. So if you position and distance yourself correctly, it pays off dividends. They also have the rewards of treachery, and they're able to take up to 3 units that they borrow in a very Bloodraven sense from another legion. So it's like, if you like Salamander's Terminators, congratulations, you can add up to 3 units of Salamander's Terminators in your force. and they instead become Legiones Astartes Alpha Legion instead of Legiones Astartes Salamanders, for example. And that's pretty fun. There's a lot of really, really good units out there that you can take, and it allows you to vary up your gameplay because you go, you know what, this game I want to use Ultramarines Invictus Suzerains, boarding shields, really powerful unit, in close combat, defensively pretty strong. Next game, you go, you know what? I feel like I'm going to do some siegecraft. Let's take some Iron Havocs from the Iron Warriors and use those instead. So that is a brilliant thematic thing that you can do, and it allows you a lot of variation in your play style as a Legion.
Okay. All right, I'm with you on that one. This is going to be another one. Where would we go with rules? We're going A. I mean, S tier is there too, if you want to go really high up. But we got an A or S. Which one are we going for? I may as well give you the link to this, by the way.
I think S tier, because that's the sort of rules I like. Really simple rules on the surface, but they'll take you time to master.
Okay. All right.
And it's that simple. Whereas some legions have, paragraphs of rules which are, convoluted or situational. Now, this one is just a very flat. If you're, it rewards you for playing tactically in a tactical game. So I think that's good. I think it's good.
Okay. I think the only thing that's going to really hamstring the Alpha Legion for me is their involvement with the Cabal in terms of the lore. They are a huge missed opportunity. I think the first 3 quarters of the Legion book, pretty good, right? We're on our way. The last quarter, introducing the Cabal and what they're trying to do, and the nonsensical nature of the twins going, yeah, okay, let's go along with this. This sounds good. We trust these aliens, that kind of a thing. And all the way through, they are hampered with their exposure to the worst characters in the Horus Heresy, i.e. John Grammaticus and his little cohort of idiots who are following along with the Alpha Legion for the vast majority of their run. We only ever see the Alpha Legion unified once or twice. One when they're fighting the Space Wolves, and obviously in Legion when they're together fighting everybody else as well. Every single time they come up after this is to throw a spanner in the works and generally be annoying again and get in the way of plot points that are actually interesting. As in, the Raven Guard try and rebuild their Legion. That's an interesting plot point. Alpha Legion get in the way and screw it up for everybody and make it uninteresting by just the way that they handle it, that kind of a thing. The payoff of their arc being, there are several hundred of us buried in terror somewhere. So, we literally have 10,000 custodians there. Like, what? It's pointless. It literally that's your payoff. That's the climax. Ingo Petch buried in the rubble with a grenade trapped to his chest. That's your payoff. Alrighty,
when they're firing on all cylinders, like their lore is fantastic. The problem is it plays into 2 really, really bad niches. First one being the cringe I'm Alfarius stuff, which was overplayed 10 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
So it's worn very thin for me now. The other is that if just a writer has a terrible idea, they just, you know what I mean? Like, this is the Legion they seem to go to first as the this can just be, the instrument for that. And it doesn't matter because plans are then plans type thing.
Yeah.
And, it's just cringeworthy. And it's played out, and I don't appreciate it.
So
between that and the Cabal stuff, and things like putting them on Pluto, fighting Dawn, and in the Alaxes Nebula, and also on Chondax, and then in the new fluff that Horus had them on Chondax before he even said the White Scars there, but that was before Horus was even a traitor, so it makes no sense. But it's Games Workshop, and canon is. Well, it's not very sacrosanct to them, let's just say. No. I think their lore is just trashed here.
So I'm gonna throw it. This would have been S tier, right? And then we knocked it down to A tier because of bad lore. With the inclusion of the Cabal and John Grammaticus, it goes down to B tier. So that's how. Yeah. So now you guys know how we're working this, right? We started off with S tier with the rules because the rules are so good, but gradually again, and there are legions where this will be reversed. Where the lore is fucking S tier, right up there, but the rules let them down. I'm thinking one of those might be the Blood Angels who are up next. So what do you reckon on the Blood Angels in terms of the game?
Game wise, their rules. I like their rules, and Carmine Fury is a good Legion trait. Again, it's simple. It's if you're alpha striking with them, you get rewarded for it because it's improving your to wound rolling. Army wide, it's just flat +1 on your to wound rolls. Really, really simple. Obviously, maxing out at 2+. But that comes in handy so many situations, more than you realize it would. And it synergizes well with their units. They're let down in their Legion. Like, they're one of the Legions that has shit Terminators, always have had. Like, for some reason, Crimson Paladins have always sucked. It's like, all these good Terminators exist out there, like Huskarls and Dominator Cohort and Fire Drakes. And then when they got to Blood Angels, they were just like, what are all the rules left over in, like, the scrap bin? Let's just pull those out and we'll write the rules for these guys. So that kind of sucks for them. So gameplay-wise, I want to say they're a B tier. Maybe even an A tier. Yeah, actually, A tier. Legion trade is good. The Rights of War are okay. They're just let down by just janky rules of their Legion special units. I mean, they have 3 Artificer armored, power armored units designed to kill other power armor in melee. Like, talk about redundancy, you know? So, yeah, I'd probably say they start out in A tier for their tabletop. One
thing we haven't covered in tabletop is the Primarch. That's one thing.
Well, shit. Okay, I was not even thinking Primarch's rules.
I don't think it would change Thousand Suns or Elf Legion that much from where we are, you know, from what I've seen of their rules. But Sanguinius,
yeah,
definitely.
Yeah. Fuck. So, I wasn't factoring Primarch's rules into this for these Legions in my own little headcanon here. I'll talk you through my thought process, because they're... Well, Rogal Dawn is a higher weapon skill than Jagged Eye. Do I need to say more?
Yeah.
So...
we'll get to that.
Imperial Fist fanboys, we can fight later. But Sanguinius is one of the worst Primarchs in the edition.
Ow, that hurt. Oh, what?
So he's got the weapon skill that you want to see, but he doesn't have the striking power to back it up. So against any other Primarch in a duel that's in the same sort of like category, like those higher tier duelists, like your Horuses, your Lehman Russ, that sort of, he loses handily every time. He is not a good Primarch. And unfortunately, he doesn't actually have enough attacks that he's good at necessarily just slicing through units either. He's very effective at killing multiple models a turn, but he, you know, like, if you want to carve up a unit quickly, Angron is better at it. So, or Korax is just as good, and he doesn't have as high a weapon skill, but it doesn't matter because it's much higher than the Astartes that he's fighting. So, from that perspective, like, he's not good. He is not good. And Blood Angels players who have used Sanguinius, especially if they've got into Primarch duels this edition, you know what I'm talking about.
Okay.
Like, we're talking a C tier Primarch at best this edition.
All right.
So that's why I don't want to.
Yeah.
That's why I don't want to rate it, because like can't drag the entire Legion down just because of the Primarch. Because I'll be honest, they don't see a lot of table time anyway.
No. And it's most of the battlefields on the Horus Heresy will not be seeing Primarchs on the field, you know, unless they're like a Terra or a Talon or something. So yeah, let's keep that in A tier for the Legion then for their rules. In terms of lore, the main drawback of the Blood Angels is that they're hardly there for how important they are. The Blood Angels are, aside from the Sons of Horus, I would say are the main characters of the Horus Heresy. At least the old lore of how it panned out. You know, all the important campaigns, especially Terra, they're there doing their bit. How
many books? Just a question for you before you go further. How many books can you think of where the Blood Angels hard carry it? You're like, if it wasn't for the Blood Angels, this novel would suck.
Do you mean aside from the Blood Angels' own novels? Because they have their own novels. No, they have like
they have their own novels, but even then, they're often like the most uninteresting part of their own novels.
Yeah.
So like, is there, because like you can maybe would say Siege of Terror, then you're like, oh, but there's so many moving pieces in Siege of Terror. It's not the Blood Angels holding it up.
No, but they're kind of like the Dark Angels.
Is there a novel?
Yeah.
Is there a novel? Because like A Thousand Suns, for example, the novel A Thousand Suns
is all them,
or The Empress Children and Fulgrim, or The Word Bearers and Wargar, or the Ultramarines and No Fear. Like, there are legions you just associate with novels, and you're like, yeah, if this legion wasn't the one in this novel, it would suck.
You've got a very good point there, because the Blood Angels don't have their first heretic. They don't have that book. Here is the Scars. They don't have the Scars book. You know what I mean? They're just there.
No, they got Fear to Tread, and somehow it was also the first Horus Heresy novel to make it onto the New York Times bestseller list.
Yeah.
First Heretic. And nobody I know really rates that book. They're like, yeah, it's okay.
I mean, Fear to Tread, Fear to Tread is there because it has to be there. We need to get the Blood Angels to Kabanda. We need to get him to that duel with, Sanguinius getting cast down the first time, losing the first round. Because he's not expecting to fight a demon and stuff like that. And I think this is a symptom of Games Workshop getting to the back half of the Horus Heresy and going, oh my god, we have so much ground to cover. Let's just skip all this and get them right to where we need them to be. That kind of a thing. So that's their main drawback in the lore, is the fact that in sheer terms of numbers and interesting books, they don't have any, right? They don't have their own First Heretic. They don't have their own Scars novel that they could really have benefited from. Ironically, the Devastation of Baal does a better job of showing you what the Blood Angels are on the ground level before the Tyranids get there than any of the Horus Heresy books. And by that stage, they're much different to the Old Legion, So, I'm not really seeing... Again, their importance at the Siege of Terror goes without saying. That I know you haven't read it yet, Maka, but that last duel with Horus was really well written by Dan Abnett. Brutal. It was brutal and tragic and upsetting. Like, frankly, and that's the word. It was upsetting. Like, the guy's beaten to death, viscerally, right in front of you. Like, you're literally right there. You feel every single swing, and then being strangled to death, and then nailed to a wall in the Vengeful Spirits Bridge. Right? You get that. It's like, fuck. Oh, So, they stuck the landing with Sanguinius and the Blood Angels, but it was Sanguinius' story. The Blood Angels, Ralderon had a few cool moments, especially against that Night Lord. That was hilarious. Where he just the Night Lord's like, I am Savtorius. You're about to duel. And Ralderon goes, never heard of you. And stabs him. Just shit like that. But I can't put it in S tier. I can't even put it in A tier. It's in B tier in terms of lore. And they're lucky to get there, to be fair. I could have put them in C tier. That final duel kind of saved them a little bit, so I'm going to throw them in B tier. Down from A to B tier. So we're establishing a theme here, and that the lore's kind of dragging people down. But with the Dark Angels who are next, I have no idea where this is going to go, because the Dark Angels... I honestly think this is one of the books that convinced Games Workshop to use standalone Legion introduction novels very sparingly, because of how poorly it did. But how about in the rules, though? What are we looking at with Dark Angels?
So, rules-wise, they've got some quirks. Their rules are very, very good, but they make no sense to someone coming in. So, for example, Deathwing. It's a set of rules that gives members of the Deathwing, if they're using swords, they get boosted to hit rolls. But who are the Deathwing predominantly? Terminators. What weapon do Terminators not make a lot of use of? Swords. They're mostly armed with Power Fists and Thunder Hammers and Lightning Claws and Chain Fists and basically anything other than swords. They do have access to the swords, but when, you want to win games, as most people do, they tend to gravitate towards the weapons that actually can win them games. And that's not swords. And if you're arming Terminators with a weapon they can't even hurt themselves with, like, shrug, it's just pointless exercise. But it's really good on basic infantry. Conversely, one of the other ones, the Stormwing, Was it Stormwing? No, it was Ravenwing. Ravenwing, really, really good, you would think, for bikes and jet bikes. It actually works better on Terminators, because it boosts the movement of the Terminators, which are notoriously slow. So the wing types don't naturally sync up where you think they should. In addition to that, when you take a Rite of War for that Legion, if you want to build it in the theme of one of those forces, such as the Dreadwing or the Firewing, the Rites of War are incredibly restrictive and don't give you much of a buff for taking the Rite of War. So instead, you're better just to not do so and to just take something generic or whatever instead, and then, you'll work out the rest. So yeah, that's weird. Units-wise, they got some really fun, really good units. Primarch rules are solid. I think he could be a little bit better, Lionel Johnson. And one of the weapons, last edition, you'd never take the Lion Sword last edition. This edition, you would never take the giant chainsword. So it's one of those funny things for those who are wondering about the Primarch.
Okay.
So, and they also have the worst written unit in the game, which is a Legacies unit, which is the Exindio class Battle Automata, which is a not dark mechanic, it's a Mechanicum Automata, but they've slapped a Man of Iron brain in it.
Great.
So, yeah, on the whole, though, I would say they're S tier and top.
Okay, alright, so I think the Dark Angels suffer from the same thing the Blood Angels do, but in reverse. So the Dark Angels got their introduction novel, but it did so poorly that they basically just tanked Games Workshop's even idea for doing those kinds of novels in future. Mainly, and it wasn't a bad book. It's literally because, well, it comes at a time when we're already experiencing, okay, we're going through the Horus Heresy in a chronological order. We've just done Flight to the Eisenstein. Everybody's pumped. And now we're going back several thousand years to Caliban with a load of knights in a fantasy novel. Doesn't really work. It's a tonal whiplash. No one knows where they are. And from that point on, the Dark Angels are such an unwieldy force, and they're so powerful in the lore, that Games Workshop don't really know what to do with them in the Horus Heresy. They try and keep... They do what Horus does. They try and keep them away from all the important parts in the story, right? There's a reason why, for no reason, the Dark Angels just turn up in the Unremembered Empire books. They're just there, right? Because they've got nothing else to do, okay? There's a reason why they're forced to fight the Night Lords constantly, all the time. Because those are two legions that Games Workshop has no idea what to do with, so they just slap them together, The Dark Angels finally turn up at the Siege of Terror, sure, but they're under Corswain and not under the Lion, and all they do is they hold the Astronomicon and stop it from going out, so they can signal the Ultramarines who are on their way to come down to Terra. That's a cool thing, in and of itself, it's fine, but at the same time, it's kind of a job, right? It's the B-team job. Dark Angels aren't the fucking B-team. Let me just tell you this right now. Dark Angels are the A-team. Dark Angels are the original Legion. They shouldn't be casted aside like that. And I think that they're too unwieldy for Games Workshop to really use with any sort of skill. It's very strange how certain legions, like the Word Bearers, White Scars, they got novels that really gave them a good arc, which is why people love them so much. Dark Angels kind of fell away, and this is why they needed to do the Primarch novels. They shouldn't have needed to do them, but this is why, because they fumbled the Dark Angels so hard. So this is one. It wasn't quite as hard as, say, the Blood Angels, who have vast swathes of their story just missing, cause reasons. We almost get too overexposed to Dark Angels in the 3 novels that they get, because we go all the way back to the start. But I'm going to put them... We're going from S tier down to A tier. This is the first A tier Legion, simply because they are there at the Siege of Terror. Them being there makes sense, and, I guess that's where they're going to go. Alrighty.
I would also add to that, okay, those first books are so rough, but the minute they take them off Gav Thorpe, things pick up. Unremembered Empire onwards, they're really, really good. Yeah. When you get like the Lehman Russ Primarch novel, the Dark Angels are fantastic in that novel. Mm-hmm. So it's basically any time where it's out of Gav Thorpe's hands, unfortunately. Sorry, Gav, but you just made a mess of it.
You can't have someone every week. It's fine,
Yeah.
Death Guard are up next. Okay, because this is going to be... This might be a controversial one. But hey, Death Guard rules, where are we?
Rules-wise, on the tabletop, they're in a solid place. They're actually very fast Legion, believe it or not, because their ability to basically move and shoot with heavy weapons, able to move even when pinned. They've got this rule that allows them to get around a lot of movement restrictions. Their elite units are interesting. Very durable in the case of Death Shroud. Basically, anything less than Strength 10 just isn't hurting, like isn't instant killing them. They can shrug off las cannon fire, which is pretty impressive. We're talking 3 wound Terminators at toughness 4 with battle hardened 1, so equivalent to toughness 5 for instant death purposes. So very, very, very solid. Good Primarch rules. They've got one dud of special unit, which is the Mortis Poisoners, just because you can build equivalent units with the same war gear for cheaper, which is just one of those bizarre things. Solid Rights of War, definitely an S tier tabletop.
So I'm thinking people who are watching are now realizing why. Yeah, we could have done this video without me or Kaifa, but we couldn't have done this video without Mac. Like, this is one of those weeks where we're both equally kind of useless, because we both know, I think me and Kaifa are the same on the law, and we're the same on, we know a little bit about the rules of Horus Heresy, but not as much as what Maka does. So, in terms of the law of the Death Guard, this is so difficult, because Mortarion was always done dirty before the Horus Heresy even kicked off. Like, the original law of the Legion was always him getting done dirty by everybody. But I actually think it's...
So let's break it down then.
Yeah.
Let's look at where they pop up, because they're a Legion that never gets a novel.
No.
Ironically, they're the Legion that never got a novel.
Yeah.
So everyone has a novel that features them on the cover. The closest these guys came is the Primarch novel and Flight of the Eisenstein.
I think they're on the front of Galaxy
they're
in
on
Flames.
the front of...
Are they not?
Yeah. They're on a free front cover, so I mean, like, a novel that is theirs.
Yeah.
But they're front and center, as in it is their novel.
Yeah.
Right? Galaxy in Flames is a Horus novel.
It is, yeah.
Or a Sons of Horus novel.
They're there. Garrow's there. And everyone's there, but yeah, they're not...
But every time they make an appearance, how do they perform? I think Flight of the Eisenstein, it's a rather fine appearance, but it's when they hit, when we see them in Scars and Path of Heaven, and when we see them at the Siege of Terror. That's really what we've got to rate them on, because that's where we're really seeing that Legion actually getting put to use.
Yeah. And I think in terms of them being rated, we can't take shit away because they haven't had their own novels, because that's not their fault. The way they're represented is very good. I would actually put them in S tier, the way that they're represented in the lore, because they have a beginning, middle, and end. It's just told through other people's novels. You can follow the only
weak.
Go on.
Yeah, the only weak point I think they have is Mortarion's backstory.
Yeah.
Ironically, that he's just pissy that the Emperor kill stole, when the Emperor pretty fairly set down the rules, like, if you can kill him, then you're golden. If I can kill him, you work for me, was the deal that he made with the Emperor. Mm-hmm. And he couldn't kill his foster father. He was about to be killed by the foster father, in fact, and then the Emperor intervened and killed the foster father
it's
of
also,
Mortarion.
The other weak point is they never really... And only in one scene did they discuss the hypocrisy of Mortarion using psychic powers, right? When he's talking to Magnus at the Siege of Terror, and Magnus is saying, don't worry, we'll handle this together. I'll stabilize your psychic powers. And he stops his pain, basically. He takes away some of his pain. So that comes up once, and he justifies it by saying, listen, I was made this way, but by, I had to do this to save my sons. I'm not doing this because I want power. I'm doing this because, this is what I was left with. It's a curse. Now, that I liked, and they should have explored that a bit further going through the actual series. No,
Nurgle is the happy god. You are happy now.
Exactly.
Understood?
Yeah. But there are so many other good bits. I mean, I don't know if you remember this. It's in a Siege of Terror novel where one Death Guard is wandering through the wasteland looking for his squad. Obviously, he's a Plague Marine now. And he hears this, jolly music. He's like, what the bloody hell is that? turns around, then this diseased Land Raider turns up, and then the top of it just like, you ever seen that commercial with Mr. T in it? And he just like opens the top hatch, you know, and it's another Death Guard, and he goes, "Hello!" It just made me just giggle. It was like, the Jolly Legion, here they are, sort of a thing. It literally, in the audiobook, it's literally said like that as well. It's like, "Oh, hello there," that kind of a thing. It's so funny. But I think with the Death Guard, we're following them through Garrow too. And Garrow is fucking badass. And probably one of the best characters in Horus Heresy. So, for that reason, what tier would you put them in for rules? Just again, quickly, because I think lore-wise, it's...
I think S. I think this is an SS. This is double S tier.
They're up there. That's it. They're done. They're in S tier. They're our first S tier Legion. I was not expecting that, but there we go. Next, Emperor's Children. Okay, so by and large, when we get into it, Emperor's Children have my favourite Horus Heresy book in there, but we'll get to that in a minute. On the tabletop, what are they like?
Legion rules are S tier. The Legion units are B tier. So I would probably put them in A tier. And I say this not to be too cruel, but it's you get honeydicked by their rules. Because their Legion Elite units are really, really, really good at killing things in power armor. They're not very good at killing things that aren't in power armor. And so people get trapped into buying and loading up on swords and spears. And of course, as I discussed, swords and spears aren't very good at killing things in Heresy. They just look really, really cool. And these guys have some of the nicest sculpts. They're 13-year-old sculpts now.
Yeah.
They're bangers. They hold up. The Palatine Blades and the Phoenix Terminators especially. Oh, gorgeous. The Primarch rules, Fulgrim is really, really solid. But I have a caveat. A riddle for you. A conundrum, if you will. What about Legiones Hereticus? Because Emperor's Children have two sets of rules in the Horus Heresy. One was the core rules that was introduced for them. The other is the rules that replace those if you want to play them with Demon Primarch Fulgrim. So after they're going full noise. And those rules are worse than 1,000 Suns. We're talking the bottom of D tier.
Holy hell.
So, do we rate the Legion based off, the pristine picture you've provided, or do we rate them warts and all?
I think we've got to rate them in terms of the rules. We have to rate them on what you're going to come across most on the tabletop. It as a tiebreaker.
Let's stick with A tier then.
Okay.
But for those who are curious, if you had Legiones Hereticus, Emperor's Children, they're the bottom of D tier.
Alrighty.
Their rules are awful.
So we're going with A tier for that. In terms of their overall story, Fulgrim gets a shocking amount of screen time in the Horus Heresy. And my favourite book...
They love him.
Yeah, they do. My favourite book in the Horus Heresy is actually Fulgrim itself. I think it in
you know
terms
what?
of... Go on.
Oh, I would say he actually gets more screen time than Horus in the Horus Heresy.
He literally does. No, there is a graph. He literally does. Yeah. So, especially if you count Primarch novels, because he turns up in a few of those. All right, so he turns up quite a few other Primarch novels. And the one place where Horus could turn up more than him, he still turns up more than Horus in the Siege of Terror. He's still there for the first several books. He's still there. Anyway, somebody really liked Fulgrim, is all I can say. But in terms of Fulgrim the novel, it is a very, really good sci-fi novel. Not even Horus Heresy novel. It's a really... I've shown Fulgrim. I've given cliff notes of what the Warhammer 40k is, or 30k is, to somebody, like a five bullet points, right? And then I've given them Fulgrim, and they've really enjoyed it, right? I've not been able to do that with any other Horus Heresy book. It's got an amazing beginning, middle, and end. This slow fall of the Legion to absolute depravity, and it ends in the best battle, right? It ends at the Drop Site Massacre, the absolute, the coolest one, right? The most iconic one from the Horus Heresy. Yes, more than the Siege of Terror. I'm sorry, it is, right? It is the one. Treachery revealed and all that kind of stuff. So one thing I will say for the Emperor's Children is they come across as too powerful. They're winning things. They're winning duels they shouldn't be winning. I know in Fulgrim's own novel, every single time an Iron Hands champion and an Emperor's Children champion cross blades, even if it looks like the Emperor's Children champion is outmatched, Emperor's Children champion will win, right? Every single time. The one guy who's allowed to lose is Lucius, because it's a running joke now that for the best swordsman in the galaxy, he loses every single fight he's ever in. Garvey or Locum just breaks his nose, for God's sake, that kind of thing. But in terms of how the quality of the actual stories and the quality of the actual novels, Emperor's Children are S tier. They do have drawbacks. Fulgrim and the Emperor's Children are written as being way too powerful for what they are. They win nearly every single fight they're ever in. And even when the guy's in bloody Angel Exterminatus. It's got nothing to do with him. It's an Iron Warriors novel, and they worm his way in there, very literally, where he becomes a worm, in his ascension to demonhood. Do you know what I mean? So, it is a strong-ass legion when it comes to narrative in the Horus Heresy. What do you reckon? Have I missed anything that you'd like to pinpoint there in terms of... It is a big legion in terms of, their lore in the books. This is one of the biggest ones.
I actually think you're bang on. They're just written well. Written really well. Every time we deal with them, it's like, yep, this is right. When we see them pop up in stories like Path of Heaven, they are on point. I got no negatives to say when it comes to this particular legion.
I think we've got to do S tier,
they're
man.
written competently.
Yeah.
They're I think they move up a tier.
Yeah, they're up there. As much as people who don't like Emperor's Children, I get you. They're overbearing. Somebody or a lot of people at Black Library clearly like them. No, and that's, by the way, that's not a bad thing. Even what Maka just said there, every legion should have gotten this treatment. This should be the blueprint of what it should have been, right? Your own first novel, and then you pop up in several others as the story expands and goes forwards. But with great characterization, everybody gets their time in the sun. The problem with the Horus Heresy is that's not the case, is it? Do you know what I mean? Imperial Fists. All right, Maka, you're going to be fighting your corner on this one, I think, because there's going to be in the rules, there's going to be a lot of people who say that your Rogel Dawn's just as powerful as he should be. I think we're both of the opinion that that's not quite the case. But on tabletop, what are they like? The Imperial Fist, the Praetorians of Terror, what are they like?
They are the most overpowered Legion in 2.0. Specifically from the standpoint that you can literally turn your brain off when building a list with them. And it's probably going to be quite a strong list. They have characters which make heavy support squads scoring. Their heavy support squads have access to some of the best weapons in the game that no one else has, except Blood Angels, which is assault cannons. Except they also get +1 to hit with their assault cannons. So we're talking 10-man squads with assault cannons that have the ability to shoot people that deep strike or come in off a table's edge in an outflank for free. Their shield walls that they can form with Phalanx Warders. You're talking 5-up, re-rollable, invulnerable saves, backed by 4+ feel no pains, with power weapons. They have storm shields, which again, nobody else has access to in Horus Heresy except for the Salamanders. The Salamander storm shields only add +1 to your invulnerable saves. Imperial Fist ones add just a flat 3+ invulnerable save to you. So all in all, it's like you have awesome melee units in Huskarls and Storm Shield Terminators with Thunderhammers. You've got a fantastic defensive middle line in your Phalanx Warders with their just unbreakable armor saves. Just so hard to kill, especially when they're on objectives. You've got an awesome backline that can just sit and hold the objectives in your own territory, and if anyone comes near them, they'll just hose them with a bajillion rending shots a turn. They have an excellent console. It's just... all of their stuff is just so good across the board. If you had any one of those units, it would be okay. That they got all of those.
So the thing is, though, Maka, how are we doing this? So if we... I don't think we're... You can have bad rules that are too powerful. Do you know what I'm saying? So I don't think we're doing these tier lists, or this tier list in particular, on how powerful the rules. We're going on how good are the rules in the game, right? How good of an army are they to play and enjoy for both you and your opponent, which is what the game's all about at the end of the day. So whilst you're describing really powerful rules, you did, in sort of osmosis before, you established the theme of just because a rule is powerful doesn't mean it's good. Do you know what I mean? So in terms of, let's reframe it as that. So in terms of how powerful the Imperial Fists are, what kind of a tier would you put them in? I know they have really good rules, but you as someone who's played against a lot of Imperial Fists yourself, have you enjoyed the games? Have they been, because this is the one we need to dial in on this with, because they are the most powerful faction right now in Horus Heresy.
I have enjoyed my game, but the caveat that is because the people I was playing against were not dicks about it. They did not load the list up to the guild, and yet they were still incredibly strong. So I think they are definitely an S tier when it comes to their rules. It is very, very easy for them to become oppressive.
Okay, I get that.
They have tools to do every job, and it's up to the person wielding them how many of those tools they choose to take.
Well, I'm going to be honest. I think this is our third in a row S tier Legion, because the Imperial Fists, they're another strange Legion where they don't get very many novel time on their own, but they're so, shall we say, intrinsic to the Horus Heresy that them turning up in other people's novels. And let's be honest, the Siege of Terror books are basically Imperial Fist books, right? They're the main dudes holding the line against the traitors. That this is where the Rogaldorn's the main Primarch for the Loyalist side. He's the one holding it all together, whilst while Sanguinius and Jagatai Khan go boogaloo outside and fight everybody. So
I actually think they're the Loyalist counterpart in many ways to the Emperor's Children.
Yeah.
In that they rock up so much. I can't think of another Loyalist Legion that pops up as much as these guys.
Mm-hmm. I mean, again, can be described as overbearing, but the quality of again, we're doing this the same way as we do the law, right? The rules. Just because a rule is more powerful doesn't mean it's better, right? Just because a rule is weaker doesn't mean you can have a really weak but really thematic rule, and we'd be like, oh, that's S tier, that's really cool, right? The same thing goes for law, okay? Just because they're overbearing, if the quality of their storytelling is good, which it is for the Imperial Fists, that means they're an S tier, right? Because they are really well told. They always act in the way that you expect Imperial Fists to act. They don't have any glaring weaknesses in their conflicts like the Thousand Sons do, for instance, right? They don't have any glaring weaknesses in their logic like the Alpha Legion does. There's no real Achilles heel to the lore as it's told of the Imperial Fist. There are Achilles heels to the Legion, but that doesn't mean it's a bad story, right? So that's why
I think they do fall into the trap of they are the ultimate Mary Sue.
Yeah.
The Legion has to play out a certain way because it's the Horus Heresy, but nothing that existed in the lore for the Horus Heresy said that he fought Fulgrim and came away okay. Nothing in the background said that he fought Alfarius and killed him on Pluto. In fact, quite the opposite. The existing lore was that Alfarius was killed by Gilliman on an ice planet during the Scouring, if you read Chapter Approved.
I think that still happens.
He just gets a lot of wins, but essentially it's played up as every decision Rogel makes is right, and when he questions himself, he falls into all the Mary Sue tropes. Everyone else is intrinsically like, you're the man who can do this. Only you can do this, Rogel Dawn. All just grinding and cracking his fucking pepper, you know?
Yeah.
The whole way through. And it really sucks, because I actually like Imperial Fists a lot as a Legion. I think their rules are interesting. I like the dynamics of like the stoicism and stuff, all those aspects. I'm down for it. Where it all falls apart for me is the whole, it gets overplayed. Like, it takes the fun out of it. We're suddenly like, oh, Imperial Fist story. Do we have to?
Yeah.
You know?
I think so. In that's a very, very, very good point. It's something that I was sort of skirting around because I wasn't sure how to verbalize it, but thank you, you did it much better than what I could. So, do we think, because I completely agree, do we think that's enough to drop it from S tier to A tier in terms of the lore? Because that would affect things.
I would drop it to A, but I would not go any lower. I think on the whole, when it sticks to guys like Alexis Pollux and it's just exploring those sort of stories, perfectly fine. You know, it's just the Rogel Dawn cracking of the pepper that gets me, you know. It's just that bit too far. All those Primarch kills, it's like that was never his thing. His thing is holding the defenses together, being that rallying point for the loyalists. You know, where Sanguinius is the really obvious rallying point. He's in the background, actually making the logistics of the siege work, and they should have stuck to that for me. That's the stuff that he does best and is most interesting with that character. When they take him out of that, and he's doing things like the fight on Pluto. That's just like, oh, it's bolter porn. Like, you know, it's...
Yeah. No, I'm with you.
Whatever. It does a disservice, not just to him, but to the legions they're fighting.
So we're on A tier for Imperial Fist. There you go. So I think that's much more than fair. Iron Hands are up next. This is going to be...
Kaifer has joined us too.
Oh, has he? Brilliant. Is he here?
Hello.
Hey, man. How's it going?
Good, I suppose. Apologies, fellas.
So sleepy. So sleepy.
I can put you on the thumbnail now. Hooray. I can use this thumbnail I always had. This is awesome.
Yeah, technically, I've arrived.
We'll put him on there, but change his eyes to closed.
Dude, literally, you are literally halfway through. You joined right at the right time. So we're doing the Legion tier list, as you know. Shall I read out the results so far, so that you can get up to speed?
If you don't mind.
All right, we can do a quick recap.
Useful, actually.
We can do a quick recap for those of you who are who need a recap. So, again, we're judging this on law and rules, okay? But just because a rule is really powerful doesn't necessarily make it good. And just because somebody appears in a lore a lot doesn't necessarily make it good, right? It's got to be good content to get up the tiers here. So we have at the bottom tier is John Grammaticus, which is like literally where you put all the shit, all the nonsense. We've got C, B, A, and S tier, okay? So the first legion in C tier is the Thousand Sons. Won't go into why, because we'll be here all day. The B tier legions so far are Alpha Legion and Blood Angels. The A tier legions so far are Dark Angels and Imperial Fists, and the S tier legions so far are Death Guard and Emperor's Children so far. And we are now on Iron Hands, so we're literally on 10th Legion. We're halfway through, so you joined right at the correct moment. So I'm thinking, now that you're here, Maka is really good at talking about the rules, so maybe we can chime in on the rules, but I think mine and your modus operandi here will be the lore and discussing what goes on with them in the lore as we go along. So yeah, in terms of rules, Maka, for Iron Hands, where are we in 2.0?
Oppressively good rules. Where they're let down is they're not very good, particularly in melee. They're like 0 buffs in that area, except for maybe one type of particular Terminator bodyguard unit. But apart from that, yeah, they're really, really strong. If you want to play a shooting game, they're probably going to win because they are very, very tanky at shooting. They reduce the strength of all incoming weaponry by -1. So their dreadnoughts, for example, can't hurt them with bolt guns, which
These sound like
how many bolt guns are in a game. Yeah, I don't know if you know how many bolt guns are in a game of Heresy, but it's usually more than 3. So, and their Primarch is the most overpowered currently in the game, even though he's a low weapon skill.
Ironic.
His weapon is just so filthy over the top, as well as his rules he grants to his legion. Like, we're talking tanks that on a 4-up just start recovering hull points and growing back lost weapons. It's ridiculous. So, again, if they can build into it to be really oppressive, if they want, like a Fury of the Ancients with Iron Hands you just cringe at it. But otherwise, they're mostly played pretty tastefully. So I think this is another S-tier legion.
Jeez, okay, all right. See, for those of you who keep complaining at Maka that he never gives anybody any credit when he does his videos for Horus Heresy and stuff, well, here you go. We've had... I'd say he's been more forgiving on the rules side than I've been on the lore side, put it that way. In terms of the lore, Kaifer, are you ready to go with Iron Hands? You wanna join me in tearing this shit apart? Because there is a real... disparity here between the rules as they're presented in rules and how they're presented in the lore. The lore, they are pathetic. Like, they are literally just kicked when they're down. Literally any single duel they get involved in, they lose. Obviously they lose their Primarch on the Dropsite Massacre against Fulgrim. And not only then, though, he's beaten against Fulgrim even when he sucker punches him. When Fulgrim, says, I'm going to be a traitor now, and Ferrus Manor says, I'm going to fight you, so he starts beating him up, and he still loses, So, for all the S-tiered rules they have, I don't think I can put them above B tier in terms of the lore. There might even be C tier in terms of the lore. What do you reckon, Kaifa, with the Iron Hands?
Right. On the rules front, I agree with everything Mac has said. From what I understand, and like you said earlier, I'm just going to defer to kind of Macca's expertise because he's much more directly involved with the system than I am. I mean, I catch a battle report here and there, or an Outer Circle video from time to time that gives me a light understanding of what's going on there.
Men of culture. Go watch all.
Of course. On the lore front, I'm probably going to be more forgiving than you are, only because, as far as my understanding goes, there are greater offenders for me in terms of annoyances or grievances with legions, or going from legion to legion, than the Iron Hands, because really they just whenever a Primarch acts stupidly, I'm always going to get annoyed, and that's kind of a little bit of just how my biases work around characters, which I'm supposed to believe are smart. And it's really just Ferrus being the worst at making a tactical assessment.
Yeah.
In the moment he needs to make the worst tactical assessment so we can get him to go where we need to go. Right? I feel like that could have been executed a bit better, right? You could probably set that up in a way that's more believable.
Yeah, I agree.
And that's kind of the key low point for me. I don't mind that the Legion gets shattered and spiritually crushed, losing their Primarch. I think that's the outcome I would prefer for when a Primarch falls.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think the lead up to that great payoff should be, or could have been, better handled. So yeah, I agree. It's not going to be an S tier for sure in terms of lore handling. Maybe like a high C, low B.
Yeah, I think you've saved them from C tier, is what you've done. So they were ensconced in S tier through the rules. But the sheer pounding they take in the lore, again, losing in the lore doesn't mean it's bad lore, right? And you're right there, Kai, from what you're saying. But the way that it's handled makes it bad lore. The way that it's shown to you it makes it bad lore. So they're saved from C tier from what you've just said. You think you made a good argument. I'll pop them in B tier. There we go. So,
I'm going to try and drag them back down to C. Give me a second.
Okay, okay, let's go.
Do it.
So we have made a lot of fun. So Darcy, Rhino, and I, two of my closest friends, the inner circle of the outer circle, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
I guess that's what the middle circle. We had an 8-hour drive to discuss everything hobby related on our way to a heresy event that I, of course, don't play. And when we were on this drive, the subject of who is the stupidest Primarch came up, and without a doubt, it's Ferrus Manus, we decided, based on everything we've been given. Because people out there will defend him. With the information he had, he made the best judgment call. It's like, no. With the information he had, he made the worst judgment call. The guy is a potato. So, and we also tease him because it turns out when he was growing up on Medusa, a bit of lore they added was that he used to eat rocks, grind down rocks and eat them. Because his Primarch physiology can actually take nutrients out of them. So we joke that he's the child in the sandpit eating it at school. But no, his attack plan on Isfahan, they try and play it up there are many ways you can write attacks, and they could have written it in such a way that it makes sense what he does. It was the only attack vector he had, Instead, it's this is not Saving Private Ryan. You are not forced to move your troops from England over the English Channel to invade Europe. You have spaceships that have the ability to land anywhere on Isfahan. He could have brought down all of his loyalist legions, set all of their equipment up, brought down his Titan legions, and then attacked Horus from multiple directions at once with the firepower of, 7 legions versus 4. Instead, his plan, which both Vulcan and Korax strongly disagree with, Korax in particular, because Korax has got a brain. His plan was instead to drop directly in front of the traitors' positions, under fire from the minute they enter orbit, land in front of all the sighted-in defenses of the traitors, with the idea being that it would be quicker for him to get to Fulgrim to kill Fulgrim.
Yeah, come at me, bro. Yeah.
Hard R, retard.
Yeah.
This guy, he is a potato. And that's
you've
because the
convinced me.
people who wrote him have no concept of just the most basic level military techniques. So if you've got overwhelming force, right? If you want him to do that, you need to write into there, like, there needs to be a time crisis. Like, there needs to be a crunch reason why he has to land at that time in that place and attack that way. He's like, look, I don't want to do it, but this is the only way I can see. And the other Primarchs like grudgingly agree with him. But when the other Primarchs are there just spitting straight facts, like, you're dropping us in the middle of a kill zone, he shouldn't be just going, yeah, well, but you know, just like fucking man up, like grow some balls. What? I thought this was America, you know, like.
Well, I think the thing is though, Maka. Okay, so we gave him S tier for rules, right? So dropping a 2 or 3 tiers is a hell of a drop. So what I need to from you is, because I will do it, but. Do you think it's that much of a drop-off from their rules to their lore that they deserve to be from S to C tier? That's the question you got to ask.
Like, it balances out? It averages out as
So
score?
my question would be, are there other appearances enough to salvage them?
No.
No, because that's like such a terrible offense is the issue, which you've kind of ironed out there.
But also, we're ironed out, like what you did there. But, like, no, in terms of the other appearances... You know, mainly in the Fulgrim novel, they're always idiots.
We get Shadrach Medicine,
yeah,
who's a really cool character.
Yes,
and then the ruling council of the Iron Hands basically kills him off because they're like, this guy's being way too proactive. We're not going to help him.
I forgot about that. Fuck that. They're going in John Grammaticus. Yeah, you got rid of Shadrach Meduson. Go fuck yourself. No, they're going down there. They're going to the bottom one. Fuck that shit. I forgot about that. I completely forgot about that. Okay, right.
So I think C tier, but like, yeah, it's just
like that. No,
their writing is just.
You
awful.
can't have Shadrach Bloody Meduson and then you just jettison that character because reasons. Because he's the great.
He's problematic, right?
He was way too effective.
Well, that's what happened to Ferris too, right? Like, yeah. Otherwise, he would be a very effective, competent.
But here's the other thing, though, Kaifa. I'm insulted by that because when Horus says, "Oh, if we had Ferrus Manus, we'd have already taken Terra by now." No, you wouldn't. Stop talking shit. Stop trying to talk up this dude who died in the first 5 minutes because he's a fucking retard. Like, no, sorry, you wouldn't have taken. You'd have lost if Ferrus Manus would have been on the traitor side. You'd have lost Ferrus Manus in the first 5 minutes.
He would have pulled an anger on.
Yeah.
Well, based on this performance, yes. Right? What else do we have to go by?
I mean,
just hearsay.
I was actually campaigning for them to be in B tier, but then I was argued down to C tier quite well. So I was like, okay, fine, C tier is where they're going to go. But I forgot about Shadrach Meduson. Like, sabotaging that guy to the point that he's literally taken out of the story. Go fuck yourself. You're in John Grammaticus. Sorry, that's where you are. All right. So, next is, and this is going to be a hill I'm going to die on, I think, Iron Warriors. So, in terms of the rules, let's go back to our rules host, Maka, for today, I'm guessing. What I'll be looking at with 2.0 Iron Warriors right now.
Another S tier.
Jesus.
Brutally strong legion. Very simply so. +1 strength to all their shooting against vehicles, dreadnoughts, buildings. So you're talking strength 10 las cannons. You know, some of their weapons are going up to strength 11, 12, and 13. It's insane how strong some of their stuff gets. They just put that stuff down hard. In addition to that, their firepower is basically on par with Imperial Fists, just in a different way. Imperial Fists are saturation fire with assault cannons. The Iron Warriors have Tyrant Terminators, so full squads of 10 of Cyclone missile launchers, or Iron Havocs, which are really, really strong Legion support, heavy support squad. They've got the Iron Circle Battle Automata, which are not great, but in Zone Mortalis, quite strong. And Dominator Cohort, which is one of the best Terminator bodyguards in the game. So, and Primarch's good as well. And good Rights of War. Hammer of Olympia is really strong. Like pinning, shrapnel bolters. So pinning on their weapons. Just very thematic, very strong S tier Legion, easily.
So, in terms of lore, this is another Legion who don't really get their own time to shine. Angel Exterminatus is an Iron Warriors book, I know that. But again, Fulgrim's probably the main character in it. But in terms of like how they're represented in the lore, I honestly think the Iron Warriors are some of the most sparingly used, but there's no fat on their story. Every time they're in Horus Heresy, it moves forward at a breakneck pace, and they're the driving force behind it. Even on Talon, like the most trudgingly John Frenchy book you can get, right? They're still the driving force. They're still moving things along, and it makes sense for them to be there, you know? Siege of Terror itself, they're not overbearing, okay? The one thing I can say in the Siege of Terror, they maybe should have been the counterpoint to the Imperial Fists. They weren't really, you know? You saw the genius of Perturabo. Perturabo wins the Siege of Terror. He gets through all the defenses. He beats Rogol Dawn. And even the books themselves, they shy away from telling us that because, you know, they just can't bring themselves to give Rogol Dawn any sort of loss. But Rogol Dawn's fortresses are broken down piece by Perturabo. He fucking wins, right? They give far more importance to, you know, the ambush of Perturabo's forces by Abaddon being turned back in Saturnine than they do to any of Perturabo's victories, which really pisses me off. But even though, like, Perturabo basically told not to do that, he told Abaddon not to do that, you know, but it's kind of like I don't know. It's wheels within wheels within wheels, but every single time the Iron Warriors come up, the story moves forwards. They're always well characterized, and their Primarch has a really good arc to the point that in his last scene, I was dead against Perturabo being a demon Primarch. Dead against it. That last scene I really liked, because it's like him realizing, okay, if I want my Legion to survive, then I need to be a weapon. I need to be the most logical weapon there is out there. I'm gonna take the power of chaos for myself, and I'm gonna be this dude, right? That made me go, yeah, that's the kind of thing Perturabo would think. One of the best characters in Horus Heresy by a million miles, and his flashback scenes to when he kills his own sister and stuff, mwah, chef's kiss. So S tier lore for me as well. But we also have Kaifa here, who's going to give us his opinions on Iron Warriors. I could be talked down, absolutely. If you have any reasons why you think they shouldn't be in S tier, Kaifa, I'd love to hear them. But the floor is yours, mate.
Unfortunately, I'm not going to try to talk you down from this one. Perturabo, my recollections are on Perturabo's Legion, the Iron Warriors, is pretty thin. And I'm not too confident. Like, from what I gather, like, the general consensus around him was, yeah, like you said, it's a sparingly used Legion. Sort of, they don't get to shine as hard or as definitively as others. I think the Siege of Terra makes Perturabo, the Siege of Terra series and how it was executed. If I recall correctly, Perturabo got to flex his tactical acumen, like you said. You know, he's kind of spearheading the strategic wing of the siege itself and how it's going to be orchestrated, and he's proved successful, which is like big kudos, right? It's a huge flex. But I felt as though the other Primarchs, especially the special Snowflake, God-marked legions, Chaos Legions, with their demon Primarchs who've ascended into their demon forms, are kind of stealing the show from him, which I suppose makes sense if they're all big and shiny and powered. This is my final form, right? They're doing that flex.
Yeah.
Even though they all lose.
Oh yeah, that's the point, isn't it? He's the only one who wins.
Sad when I think about it.
Yeah, he literally wins. Yeah.
But it does make him flex a bit more. But I don't think his Legion gets to flex too much in the Siege of Terra, if I recall correctly. But well, I mean, yeah, on the Iron Warriors, you guys will be able to kind of better weigh in than I would get to.
I think, Kaifa, the three main reasons. Sorry, man. I just wanted to. I'm going to forget if I don't jump in and say this. The three main things that solidify them in S tier. They're already in S tier, but there's three things that Perturabo does, or the Iron Warriors do. The first one is the duel, quote-unquote, that he has with Angron, where he literally just goes, "No, I'm not fighting you."
That's cool.
He shoots at him with everything and then just beats him up with his hammer. The other one is Barnabas Dantioch, who is now friends with an Imperial Fist dude, because it's just really funny.
That's an awesome character.
Yeah. And the last one is a scene, it's a throwaway scene that made me do a double take, because I'm listening to the audiobook on a beach, and Angron says, "Get out of my," he says to Perturabo, "Get out of my face, little digger," right? Now, I coughed when he said digger, and I literally went, he called him a what? And I just sat back down, and I had to like rewind, going, "No, he didn't say that." No, he didn't. He called him little digger, but that's still funny. So like, sorry, Mac, I jumped in before you, but I would have forgotten those things if it didn't jump in.
No offense taken. I'm gonna point out that he is too schizophrenically written because too many authors have tackled his story.
That was one point I did hear and was going to mention. That's something he suffers from, right? The different motivations
John French
from
in particular.
authors.
Yes.
Yeah, John French in particular has massacred the character. Perturabo simultaneously has some of the best stories. In fact, the best Primarch novel, I will maintain, is The Hammer of Olympia, Perturabo's Primarch novel. Brilliant. I think it's the best novel, and it does a lot to reconcile that damage. But when you're talking the whole, first thing he does when he gets his Legion is he performs a decimation, because you guys haven't done enough, and then they proceed to do exactly the same shit that they'd already done before finding him. Like, so narratively, didn't even create a new start to the Legion. It just created this antipathy where other Primarchs hate him because he killed all his own Legionnaires. His banishment of Barbarous Dantioch makes no sense either, because it's like, oh, you had Harad-induced aging, and you were not able to maintain the fortress against them, and you pretty much died to a man trying to defend this fortress from these creatures that literally aged you 10,000 years. Not good enough.
To fuck you.
Like,
Yeah,
that stuff is terrible. And then you get another novel like Angel Exterminatus, where he's extremely easy to side with throughout. You're like, yeah, I'd be getting really sick of Fulgrim's shit too if I were him. And when he slams his head through a Warhound Titan, it's very cathartic. You're like, I'm living vicariously through him right now. And then they go and swap his characters again for the next novel. It's too much tonal whiplash for the character.
Would you think,
so
Maka, that that's
you can't go
to lower it down to A tier?
Oh, I'd be going to B tier. Because if I'm moving Imperial Fist to A tier for being a Legion that does really, really well, but just gives a bit too much special sauce to Rogal Dawn, what does it say when you have an inconsistently written Legion and Primarch?
I've got to agree with it. I'm not B tier. I'm gonna go middle ground and go A tier because the rules are so good, and I will say this: the high points of Iron Warriors are far higher than their low points. Is what I will say, right? I agree with what you're saying, but I think that when they're written well, it way outstrips when they're written badly. But the peaks and troughs are still there, right? So I'll drop them down to A tier as a middle ground.
That's a reasonable take. Yeah. I think that's fine.
Yeah.
There are certainly some low points. some Primarchs in particular.
I'm colorblind when it comes to Perturabo. I love him so much. All right, okay. So. Night Lords. Alright, this might be... Again, I've said this a few times now, but in terms of the rules, this might be an interesting one.
It's strong, yeah?
Yeah, oppressively strong once more. Just down to one particular gameplay mechanic. In that... if you are playing and the Night Lords player decides that it's night fight, for some reason, Marines are afraid of the dark. You can't shoot at them, they can shoot at you, they can see you, you can't see them, you drop morale, they have things that drop your morale further. We're talking them reducing enemy Marines down to leadership 5. Like, it's
Jesus.
rough. Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, another legion that's S tier, oppressively strong on the tabletop.
Thing is, though, as we said before, oppressively strong doesn't mean good, right?
Comrade Kurz is weapon skill 8. Like this,
Yeah.
Say what you will. Too many fans and too many people writing the rules have a hard on for Comrade Kurz. This is a guy who is not classically trained in combat. It makes no sense. He grew up, as an orphan, living in the sewers, strangling gang members. You got the same weapon skill as the Lion, who grew up in an order of knights, questing and taking fortresses and,
Yeah, I think that's a bit of author rules writing bias there for sure. You're
they've
right.
done it for multiple editions. Like, he's one of the top tier combatants in every edition, and I've always had a really hard time reconciling this.
Yeah, I mean, I don't disagree with you. You suppose that's because he has intermittent foresight. Therefore, he's an amazing swordsman. Right? I think that's maybe where they're coming from.
That's my solution when people bring that up. Cope.
Yeah, I mean, it's intermittent foresight isn't.
The thing is,
he should be a good ambush. Like, he should be able to catch someone out by surprise, first round bonus.
That's
kind
it.
Of thing
That's
in
what
my
I was going
mind,
to talk
right?
about. Yeah,
It's not. He shouldn't have a persistent better weapon skill. That's mechanically dissonant.
That's what I was going to talk about. So whenever we hear about him beating other Primarchs originally, when we heard about Rogel Dawn in a short story where he very nearly kills Rogel Dawn, he nearly kills Rogel Dawn because Rogel Dawn is not expecting it, and he gets jumped on from behind by this fucking maniac who's also a Primarch, right? He starts gouging his throat out. Him just fighting Lionel Johnson to a standstill, and even worse, I know we're going to the lore pretty soon, but him fighting Gilliman and Lionel Johnson to a standstill, go fuck yourself. Seriously.
Yeah, dude, it's
like, if you are a
crazy.
Night Lords fan and you back that shit up because you read some sort of Aaron Dembski-Bowden trilogy and you think it's now okay for your Primarch to get wins like that, go sit on 1,000 dicks. No, that's not how this works. Sorry. So I'll be honest with you. If we're going from back to front now, I'd put their lore again. We're not ranking the Night Lords trilogy. That would be at S tier. No, this is C tier. Borderline Drongomaticus. Their lore in the Horus Heresy. Not good. Not thematically good. Not thematically resonant or even consistent. I would say C.
I don't know the Thramis stuff where they're fighting the Dark Angels
but
I do like the Pharaoh stuff and the Night Lords characters there. I thought they were par for the course. Like, that's kind of how I'd like them to be characterized.
I look for the Thramis Crusade because I like the Night Lords and I love the Dark Angels. I couldn't find anything. They're literally, it's short stories and it pops up in a few novels here and there. There are no full on novels of what happened in that crusade. There are bits and bobs where you see an ambush here or something. It's such a shame, and this could have put them into B or even A tier, but there isn't there. So fuck them. Whatever.
Yeah. While I like Unremembered Empire for subjective reasons, yeah, that's a glaring error on the on the lore score there for how Kurz is characterized. But does the Pharaoh stuff not redeem them a little bit? Like a gang of Night Lords just harassing neophytes for
it does.
It's a compelling story, I thought.
It is a compelling story, but if we're looking at the wider range of lore that's out there,
not redeeming enough, I guess.
No, picking on a load of jobbers doesn't really do it for me. I know that's what the Night Lords do. Don't get me wrong. But there should be more to them than that. Every single legion has their thing, but then they do other things too to really give them characterization. Having the Night Lords just tear the skin off of, what is essentially children to them, doesn't really smack me as narrative progression and showing them from different angles. The Night Lords trilogy does that. Don't get me wrong, but I think the Night Lords trilogy exists because they're so poorly written or not even written at all in the Horus Heresy. I'll be honest with you. Kiefer, I think a lot of writers in Black Library don't have the fucking balls to write the Night Lords, like Aaron Dembski-Bowden did. I'll skin them alive. Fuck them. That's Night Lords, right? And again, as I said before, Ralderon just schools them. It's dude, you're a legion of cowards, And by the time you get to that stage in the Horus Heresy, you're nodding along going, yeah, they suck. Not just like, literally, oh, you go after the weakest because that's what your Legion does. No, you literally suck. Like, you're cringe. You suck. Right? That's the point
if that's the takeaway, then there's definitely an error with how the lore's been helmed.
So we got S tier rules there. We get input from everybody on this one. S tier rules, but I would say bottom C tier lore. So whereabouts are we in that? You know, are we keeping them C tier? Or are we bumping them up to B tier through their rules? Like, what are we doing?
Who else is in C tier? I guess that's the question.
C tier is Thousand
Maka,
Suns.
if you have input on lore, you can actually weigh.
Yeah, sure, man. Yeah, sure. Sorry,
that might change.
Yeah. Tough. The war is really bad. Just the whole, like, fuck it, he can do these things because he can, partly see the future. It's like, really? So what, Magnus can't?
It's convenient, intermittent
The
foresight.
Lion can't. Okay, whatever. It's just, we want an antagonist for the story, therefore he's super Batman is just cringe. And, yeah. Night Lords players always find a way to defend it. It's cope. Just it's cope.
Yeah, they want to like their dad.
Sure.
Sure.
Yeah. Now it's not just the liking of the dad. It's become a meme to this point. Yeah, come back, curses Batman. Like, just.
Okay. Yeah, that's
a
bit of cope. It's a bit desperate.
I can't do it. I can't do it. It's just. Yeah. So. In all honesty, I think personally I want to put them down at C, but that's my own bias, so I think probably a bottom of the B.
I was going with C, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
So
I mean, high C, low B. Probably just put them in C. Maybe the top towards the upper end of C.
You got good rules.
So who else is in C tier, by the way?
Thousand Suns. Okay. Average rules and pretty astonishingly bad written lore at times.
I hate that.
Maka made a good point for Maka made a good point for Magnus's actions making sense if you have dramatic irony, right? Because they make sense to us because we know what's going on, but for characters to act that way, you're a retard, basically. Do you know what I mean? Like, there's no way.
Yeah, that's more or less my position on it.
Yeah. So Raven Guard are next, guys. Raven Guard are next. We are down to the final six now, final 6 or 7. So Raven Guard are next. Rules. Let's do rules.
Rules are strong, right? Strong for Raven Guard?
No, rules are weak.
Oh, okay.
Legion units are strong. Rights of War are underwhelming, if not bad. Corax's rules are pretty so-so. The Legion rules. So your infantry who aren't heavy, so therefore, aren't Terminators, Tartarus Terminators, which means that basically anyone who's a Legion Heavy Support Squad, Cataphracti, TARDIS, all that, are exempt from this. So it's just your basic, like, bolt gun guys get Infiltrate. This includes your Recon Marines, which have built-in Infiltrate. And your Legion Elite Recon Marines, which you're going to take because they're really good, already have Infiltrate. So the rule doesn't do anything on the units you want, because it's like, I want to infiltrate my Legion Heavy Support, get them into an advantageous fire position. No, it's like, it's your sword and bolt pistol guys, or it's your bolt gun guys. It's not your guys with siege shields, it's not your guys with las cannons, it's not your guys with jump packs, it's not your Terminators, it's just those. Your second rule is those who are Terminators, or do have a jump pack, or are a Dreadnought. You get reroll 1s to wound on the turn you charge.
Wonderful.
So not all the time, just the turn you charge. And the units it applies to are armed with weapons like chainswords and lightning claws, because Raven Guard have a lot of lightning claws. All their elite units, the Mordaithan have it. The Dark Furies have it, not the Mordaithan. They're the sniper boys. And your elite super special Terminators have Raven's Talons as well, which are lightning claws, which already re-roll to wound all of the time with all of the to wound rolls. And you have chainswords, which are shredding and therefore get reroll to wound all of the time on all the attacks. So it doesn't apply to those units.
Yeah, that seems
and then
awful, actually.
Yeah, and then you get to their third unit type, which is your skimmers, bikes, that sort of thing, where it's like, yep, if you get it boosted to this type of cover save, except half of those units it doesn't apply to because they have other rules which say you don't get that cover save because you actually also are this unit type. So it's fucking useless. Their rules are just some of the worst trash in the game. They're just a tier above Thousand Suns.
Yeah, that sounds
really bad
terrible.
rules. Yeah, but they can win games and do really well in them as well. And I hear from all the playtesting, like talking directly with, I think I'm allowed to say that I did talk about the issues with the Raven Guard with what's his face at Games Workshop, who's actually running the Horus Heresy. And a very brief exchange. Let's just say they don't continue exchanging conversations with me. I'm not the most popular person. But he's like, oh, yeah, no, they did super well in playtesting. They were really powerful. And I'm like, yeah, what'd you just do? Load up on those 2 elite units? It was basically, yeah, of course. And it's like, well, yeah, no shit, right? Load up on the best unit the army has and just spam it. Yeah, they'll do well. But did you try any of these other compilations outside of that? Oh, no. It's like, yeah, well, there you go.
Thing is,
So
it is really shitty when you have a legion or even an army that, in a game like this, you're meant to be good at one thing and another legion does what you do better than you do. You know? And I think that's the Raven Guard.
Yep.
You know?
Imperial Fist snipers are better than Raven Guard snipers.
That's what I mean.
Because they'll hit on 2s with their sniper rifle, for instance.
Yeah, that's a problem.
Night Lords have Night Fight, Raven Guard don't. You can buy a piece of war gear, which gives just the Sergeant Night Fight, but it means if you have to take a blind check, you do so at Initiative 1, which means you're probably going to get blinded, which means Weapon Skill, Ballistic Skill 1.
Hurrah. Yeah.
So, like, it's rough. They're in a terrible position, and they're really, really close to greatness. It's like if you change that from rerolling 1s to wound on the charge to rerolling 1s to hit on the charge, transforms that rule. If you remove the heavy limitation on the infiltrate, all of a sudden your Legion Heavy support squads and breaches can infiltrate. Changes that rule immensely. You know, so it's like they were on the cusp of greatness, and they just absolutely they fuck-handed it.
So they give you an army-wide rule that only affects units that already have that rule, by the sounds of it.
Yeah, they're not very well written rules. Like basically, we're talking Dron Grammaticus tier rules here, because these aren't just rules that aren't very good. These are rules that haven't been very well written with any sort of depth or care. So I think we are solidly bottom tier of rules, unfortunately, from what I've heard. In terms of actual lore, though, Kaifa, do you have anything to add about the Raven Guard? Because I have shockingly little to add because they've got a few books and they're not.
Yeah, I was gonna make a similar sort of caveat. Not too exposed to the Raven Guard's rules, but from what I gather, it's very much a case of they're massacred at the drop site, and it's kind of hard to spot them from there. They play a very small role, more or less kind of cameo appearances. I think there's only a few books.
They do have their own books, yeah. They do have their own books.
And I think it's kind of maybe another case where it's a Legion that doesn't get to shine too well. I mean, it's only a 40-plus book novel series, so I mean, there probably wasn't space, in fairness.
60-plus book novel series.
Few books. Very few books, but boy, do they shine in those books.
Yeah, they are cool.
Okay, well, you know what? That was kind of my gut intuition. I think the less exposure you have kind of serves them in this case.
Yeah, whenever they pop up, it's like, yes, this is a Legion that has a thing called common sense and another thing called tactics. And every time they make an action, you're like, oh, that actually makes perfect sense. That's rational what they're doing right now. And you sit there the whole time and go, why are the other Legions written like this? Like, Corax has strategy. And they very explicitly state in Book 3, Massacre, the big black books from Forge World, that the Raven Guard basically lose like 80-something thousand troops at the drop site massacre. Yeah. They get away with about 3,000 odd Astartes. They build back up to about 4 by the end of Heresy. But it states that they actually killed more traitors over the course of the Heresy than they themselves lost at Isfahan. So you're talking a legion that was reduced to 4,000 legionaries or so, and then goes on to claim well over 80, 90,000 kills plus on enemy Astartes.
That's
so if every other legion could haul that weight, Heresy over.
Yeah.
Because Corax's tactics are the polar opposite of Ferrus Manus's tactics. And it's why I always rate him really highly in any sort of tier list, is like, his strategy is like, oh, the enemy's really strong there. Let's not frontal charge it. Let's try and hit them over here where they're weak right now. Mm-hmm. And he does a lot of that. It's like, great. That's what we should be seeing more of. Why aren't we seeing more of this?
It should be like grade 1 Primarch combat school, right? Like, you'd expect that's like the fundamentals from any
if he goes up against like a really strong enemy fortress, he's like, oh, maybe there's a weakness to this fortress. Like, oh yes, it's got a whole bunch of humans manning this side of it instead of Astartes. That's a pretty obvious weak point. Or, hey, why don't we send in, I don't know, recon troops first and pick out where all of their firing positions are and stuff and try and annihilate them from orbit before we send in the Astartes. You know, just lots of common sense things like that. So it's very, very hard for me to not fanboy out on Corax, because he's the closest they come to someone actually using tactics in the Horus Heresy. That's not just bolter porn, where it's like, yeah, just charge across the battlefield swinging a sword. That's cool, right?
Mm-hmm.
He avoids that.
I think right. Well, you basically done all my points that I was thinking of, so I've got nothing to add there. But I think one thing I will add is that this is that kind of the reverse of the last few legions that we've had, where the laws really brought them down. Well, this one's the reverse. So the rules have put them in John Grammaticus tier, so that they would be, you know, round about here, right, in John Grammaticus tier. But now I'd say a solid B tier for how they're shown in their own books and in the Horus Heresy as a whole. I think they're pretty good, and I think the problem is, if you read those books and you're thinking, fuck yeah, I'm gonna get some Raven Guard. I love painting black, love edge highlighting. I'm gonna get all of these Raven Guard, and then you read the rules, and you're like, oh, okay. Well, I may as well use Ultramarines or Imperial Fist rules and then just call them Raven Guard rather than anything else. Anyway, BT, everyone happy with that? Nice middle ground.
Yeah, I think that's fine with me. Where did you put Ultramarines so far?
Not done them yet.
Gotcha.
They're coming up.
Gotcha. My bad.
So Salamanders is next, or are next, and shall we do this in reverse? Shall we do the lore first? Because we're going to be here for 5 minutes, I think. Looking at this.
I fucking hate everything in the lore. Can I just say that?
Yeah.
It breaks my heart.
I'm gonna. Do you know what I'm gonna do for this? I'm sorry, Salamanders fans. I'm gonna put you in John Grammaticus for your lore because it's so fucking shit. But I know every
big sad.
And it's going to be Macca's job to try and get you out of here, right? It's going to be his job to try and give you the ladder to get out of John Grammaticus, because your lore is the shit. Not your
like
fault,
everything's bad. The best case I can make, because being a Salamanders fanboy in 40k, I was very excited to see Big Daddy Vulcan, right?
Oh yeah,
doing his thing, flexing his great tactical acumen, right? And boy, was I disappointed, right? The only thing I liked was probably, I can't remember which Salamander's book it is. It might be an Old Earth. Whichever story beat has him encounter the Iron Hands, and he kind of sets them right and points out how they're on this bad path. Yeah, that's like the only thing I liked that the Salamanders got to like flex lore-wise. I mean, they just really ham into the forge and the smithing and the character and the fortitude. Like you get all that, but that's all gloss, man. That's all, like, they're just attributes. Yeah, they're known for being XYZ. Look, the flamer, they're so into flamers, right?
I will say
I don't really care. I just want them to have a good showing, and I feel in the Horus Heresy it's like awful.
I think Vulcan does at the end, because he's at the Emperor's side when he's talking to Magnus, and he actually fights Magnus and banishes him for good, like, basically beats him up.
Okay, that's a cool flex. I don't know
Yeah.
if he should be beating Magnus. I think
No,
that's
I
another
honestly think he
conversation to
shouldn't
have
either.
too.
Yeah, I think he shouldn't be. Or at very least you give him a MacGuffin so the Emperor like overcharges his perpetual abilities, so it just cancels
Yeah.
out what Magnus is doing to him.
Or shuts down the psychic potency
Yeah.
of Magnus. You
Yeah.
have to do something with these psychers. Right?
Yeah.
They're too strong otherwise.
And then the end of his arc is him standing around the throne room, sort of, shall I destroy the planet or not? Then that's the end of his arc. That's it. That's all he does. So, dude, like, Salamanders fans, I'm sorry, your books suck dick. They're awful. And towards the end there, when they actually get full Vulcan 2 Terra, where he never was, by the way, in the old lore, now they put him there, he still does nothing, apart from beat up on Magnus, which makes no sense. So, in terms of power levels, so, you know, again, Maka, it's up to you, man. Can you get these guys out of there with the rules, or are they staying down there?
Or the lore, if we've...
Or the lore, if you've got a counter
golden
argument.
nugget, some golden nugget.
You've got a counter argument, you've got a miracle argument there. Hail
Please,
Mary.
I'm desperate.
Lay it on us.
Here.
Let's see. Primarch, trash tier, rules, the Legion trait, terrible. Legion special weapons, atrocious.
Jesus.
For the addition. They're 2 in-book Legion Elite units, and their Covenant of Fire, Rite of War are S tier, and S tier. So it's either D or S for their rules. I lean into D because it affects more. Like I said, unless you just take those 2 units and spam them over and over, and even then, that's a pretty boring way to play. Trust me, I've done it. Yep, this is a bottom of D tier for every category. They have the Nick Kime Kiss of Death, and yep, that's where they live.
Alrighty, well, let's close the chapter on that one. Alright. Sorry, Salamanders fans. Look, when we do this, we're not saying, you suck and your army sucks. We're saying you deserve better, is what we're saying. Also, your army sucks. But, like, next one. Sons of Horus. Now, let's stick with rules first for Sons of Horus, because, in my opinion, this should be one of the top 3 legions, bar none, in the game. But let's see if they hold up. Maka, what are we looking at with Sons of Horus?
Strong rules, right? They're on the box.
Yeah, they've got to be strong.
It's called the Horus Heresy. It's got to be
rules
strong.
Rules are okay. I do like their Merciless Fighters special rule. Their Legion-specific weapons suck. Their Legion Elite units are okay, but very overpriced for what they deliver. Horus is a beat stick. He's no Ferrus Manus when it comes to tabletop performance. Somehow, he's strong, don't get me wrong, he gets kills, but he's like hundreds of points more expensive than Ferrus. So, think of what you can buy for those points. And yeah, I think they're basically a B at best on the tabletop. Just let down by a few little things in this edition.
Yeah, I think with Sons of Horus, I think we all know that rules isn't probably where we're going to be judging them as a whole, because the weight of them is so swingy into lore rather than being on the tabletop. Kaifa, do you want to jump in first on Sons of Horus?
So here's my for the lore side of things. Here's my my rough estimate of how things will fall. I assume because they are kind of the stars, right? They're definitely a major point of view faction for the Horus Heresy. I imagine there's so much for them that is probably going to raise them up and bring them down, and we're probably going to end up somewhere in the middle. That's my guess.
Yeah.
Because there are some characters that are very beloved and some that are very annoying, and I think there are some elements with their Primarch which are probably could be better handled lore-wise too. Some interactions. I don't particularly like his fall. I think Horus's fall was written for when this Horus Heresies was like a 3-book series, and that was it.
Okay, so I need to
because
jump off on
I think
that,
it's go for it.
Because like I said this before to Maka, when you counting Zeds. Oh. So we were talking about Games Workshop have a really weird propensity for saying, hey, this part of the lore is sacrosanct in Horus Heresy, so I'm not going to change that. But all the other parts that are around it, we'll change those because they don't quite fit. Alani's Pious, things like that, you know what I mean? We'll change all these things that have been in the lore since day one because they don't quite fit nicely. But then there's other parts of the lore that don't fit where they keep them. as like this beloved thing that they think should be there when it really needed to be changed. Horus's fall is the biggest example of that. It's the biggest example of I've been stabbed with a sword covered in shit, so I'm going to have a bad dream, and now I hate the Emperor with all my being. It's like, well, I'm sorry.
He just wakes up and he's bad now, you know?
Yeah.
Like, and not because he's tricked, because he wants to. There's
Yeah.
a difference, right?
Yeah.
I hate it. I think it's weak.
I mean, even Magnus is even there showing him that it's a sham. That's the point that got me to go, oh, fuck off. Like, no one's.
Oh yeah, he's not going to be fooled by this. His trusted brother is letting him know what's up, you know? Doesn't sit well with me.
No. So I think in terms of lore, as you said before, Kai, for a really, really good point, is that there's going to be lots of highs, lots of lows. They would average around A tier for me because there's enough characters there that are really cool. The two really big bits that I don't like of Horus's lore, again, his turn, load of shite, literally on the end of a Jugendtemper sword, and number two, we start to lean into special snowflake, you know, that thing that I hate of 40k lore, which is why I prefer 30k lore for the most part, is that you have two champions. Let's fight. Yes, and now we shall leave each other alone. Nope, that's it. We'll call it a draw. Right. I'll see you next time, because next time's going to be on the tabletop. Wink, wink. By the models, right? That's literally Sons of Horus. Towards the end of the Horus Heresy, when you've killed off everybody that you can kill off, Horus Axeman, people like that, you're then left with Abaddon, you're then left with, you know, Falcus Kiba, you're left with all these guys who have models in 40k and beyond who can't be killed off, and then you start getting the, we nearly killed him, but we just teleported away at the last moment, oh god, you know, and, you know, that's Abaddon, right? Happens 3 or 4 times. You may as well skip every scene Abaddon is in Siege of Terror, because it makes your eyes roll. Especially when he gets stabbed by the Apollyon spear by Constantine Valdor, and he goes, because he can read what the other person is down to their fiber, he goes, the spoiler, when he stabs him with it. Oh, fuck off. Just terrible. So yeah, like, you know, there are certain parts of it that I'm really just...
I have another thing I'd like to point to that annoys me around the Siege of Terra, and I'd like to get your opinion on it from you guys. So it kind of is lame to me that, you know, Horus ascends to become even, well, he ascends to his...
a Molech, right?
His maddening... empowered state, right? He's kind of off the rocker a little bit for most of the siege. I think that's fair to say.
Oh yeah.
And then by the series end, that idea is like subverted and twisted, because it's actually his like great plan to be so schizophrenic that the Emperor can't predict through foresight what his strategies and tactics will be. And I feel like that's super lame. Like,
yeah.
I feel like that's awful.
Yeah,
where do you guys sit with that?
My opinion of what they were going to do, and I thought it'd be quite clever, is if they just made Horus so powerful because he's charged by all 4 Chaos Gods, that doesn't matter what the Emperor tries to do. It doesn't matter if the Emperor can see it coming. It doesn't matter. Right?
I think that's all you need.
Yeah, so it's like, in Mass Effect, you have, you know, all of the races of the galaxy fighting against the Reapers, you know, and they're using really cool tactics, but it doesn't matter. The Reapers it doesn't matter. They're so much more powerful than you. It doesn't matter. You could do whatever you want. You could literally surround them all on all sides, kill off all the things, yeah, but the Reapers are just going to kill you anyway because they're much more powerful.
I mean, I pose the question to you guys because I get annoyed, let's say, because you know, some people that I know in real life, or, you know, you read on the internet, are just gushing over how sick that subversion is. So awesome that Horus did this and the Emperor couldn't predict it. And I'm over there like rolling my eyes, like, really? Like that's an awesome plot twist. That's a great point. That's a great setup and payoff. Like, not really. I feel like you just need Horus to act a certain way to get him to a certain place, i.e. he's schizophrenic.
What do you reckon, Maka?
There's a reason I say people have too many issues coping.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, that's exactly what it is. Yeah, it's another cope.
It was all a part of his plan all along. He actually wasn't a complete idiot. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Shall we be controversial and call it B tier? Because I think everything evens out. It really
That
does.
was my kind of guess, because I think a lot of people will adore much of Loken's stuff.
If they had just
stopped.
not touched them again.
Yeah, I know.
Just stuck the fucking landing. Stick the landing.
If they had just... It
was beautiful. It was beautiful.
Yeah, if they'd just done, like, those original 3 Horus Rising books, and then just next time we see Horus, it's Terra. Siege Terra. Like, specifically, don't see him all through the siege, and it's just him versus Sanguinius and the Emperor.
I think
that's it. If it was just that, you'd probably be salvageable, but it's the, Iron Warriors, brilliant job, but not brilliant enough, so you're being replaced. Like,
if they'd have done Loken and they said, look, okay, Loken's coming back, but his story is going to be with Malkador and the Knights becoming Grey Knights, right? And they'd have finished it with him going to Titan. I'd have been like, cool, all right, cool, I like that, cool. Anybody but fucking Erebus, that was just like the biggest middle finger to everybody who liked Loken, right? And it was just like, yeah, okay. That was Dan Abnett flexing himself and going, look, and listen, this is my character, and I kill him off whenever I want, sort of a thing. I know you all want him to be a Grey Knight, but go fuck yourself. Erebus is killing him because reasons, right? And of course, Abaddon's not going to touch Erebus because Erebus is in 40k as well. And Abaddon's like, what the fuck are you doing? That's my brother. He's like, yeah, well, now Samus is here, and Samus is going to be Loken for some reason, and that's going to... fuck off, Dan. You fucking thunder cunt. Can't stand the guy. I mean, honestly, I'm sure Dan Abnett's a nice guy, right? And he has written some amazing books, but he doesn't half dine out on those books. I'm telling you now. He dines out on Eisenhorn. That's it. Like, there's a few other books that have been pretty good, but the amount of times he shot himself in the foot on purpose just to fuck everybody else off. Because the fans all want to see Loken start the Grey Knights. Everyone that I've ever spoken to has been like, Loken Grey Knight, it's going to be awesome, it's going to be awesome. Subversion of expectations. Of course he's not going to do that. Of course he's not going to do that, because the fans want that. He's going to die, and Erebus is going to be the one to kill him, so you've got another reason to hate Erebus. Go fuck yourself, Dan Abnett. Jesus Christ. B tier. You're lucky I'm not putting him in C. Arseholes. So anyway, it just really got to me, that, because I just thought, that is mean-spirited by the author.
It definitely reads as wanting to trigger, right?
Yeah, it's literally, I will do what I want to do, and you can't tell me what to do. That's how it goes for me. It's like, come on, dude. Like, I know I'm a Grey Knight fan, but the whole point of the Grey Knights is that the guys who started them were epic as fuck, but now they're just some nameless dudes and a shard of Magnus. Be still my torn, gaping anus. Right, moving on. Ultramarines. Speaking of torn, gaping anuses.
Double S tier, right? That's where we're at.
Yeah. I mean,
we're all in agreement, right?
Are we going with their lore or rules first? What do you want to do?
So, Horus Heresy treats Ultramarines very, very differently to 40k. So, rules-wise, they teeter on the point between A and S. I would say A. It's really one very, very strong unit, the Invictus Suzerain. A lot of okay units. They've had their nerfs along the way. One point, their Thormentari Terminators were just ridiculously strong, and they have now been nerfed into uselessness. So, one of the few things I actually touched in Heresy, and that was a Legacies unit, so not any of the other glaring errors, just that one unit. But sure, okay. His workshop rules writing is just schizophrenic at the best of. It's like they use a Ouija board to decide what unit they're working on. The Legion traits themselves, the Legion trait is quite good. It's essentially Markolites. So if you shoot an enemy unit, you got one of your units and they're within 6 inches of your friendly unit that's doing the shooting. If they shoot the same target, then the second unit gets a bonus on there to hit rolls, because you're working together type bullshit. It's good rule. Their Rite of War, they only have one. I hate it. A lot of people who use Ultramarines love it, and I can't reconcile the two, because it's a Rite of War that says that basically all your units in the army must do the same thing. It has a buff that it gives. It's like, but if you use it, then it's like, if it's a close combat buff, all your heavy support units now don't do their job well that turn because they're forced to do this close combat related thing. Like, it's, if you use the movement one, it's like they all must move. And I don't like the Rite of War. So I'd say at best they're an A tier.
Okay.
But if they're played smartly, they're very, very strong Legion.
Would you say, in terms of lore, they're one of the most, shall we say, solid legions? Because I would. It's one of the
their lore is fantastic.
They get to act smart, similar to Raven Guard. You agree, right?
Yeah, there's one piece of lore I just think's a bit stupid, and that is Gilliman punching heads off wordbearers in space. His Primarch physiology, he was sucked out into space, but he's still alive because he's a Primarch and their physiology is capable of feats. So really, I think Gilliman should have been able to work that out a little bit earlier in the history of the Great Crusade, that he can function in basically no atmosphere or space. Just seems like it was just an arse pull to we wrote him out of the story, now we're going to write him back in.
Thing is, though,
but apart from that,
we've got to go with the elephant in the room, haven't we?
I thought that's the bias in me for liking that book. That book made me such a fanboy of the.
Yeah, me too.
In a way, I wasn't really planning to going into it. Mm-hmm. And it's not just the action scenes. I think there's some nice character stuff with Gilliman also.
The elephant.
Go ahead.
Yeah, that book's a hard pass for me, believe it or not.
Really?
It's cool by two things. I don't like that it has this theoretical, practical timings pacing to it. I just find that very disjointed to read as a narrative. And it introduces Alanius Pius and all that B-plot of John Grammaticus world traveling stuff. And between those two things, it kills the reread for me. I'd rather read Book 5 Tempest, the Forge World book. That is a much more thorough and enjoyable way to experience health than Fear to Tread.
Well, one thing we've skated past is the elephant in the room. It's the Unremembered Empire, Imperium Secundus.
Plays well. It makes perfect sense.
I hate the combat stuff in there that we were discussing earlier, and what they do to my boy Vulcan. But I like the Gilliman stuff in that book a lot.
Yeah. No, so if like they say, it's like Gilliman's greatest folly, his greatest shame, all this bullshit. The authors are fucking idiots. If you had the same information that Gilliman had, it makes perfect sense to do what he did.
Yeah.
How could he know that the Imperium was still going? He's like, Astronomican's snuffed out. Can't reach the wider galaxy. All the people who are leaking into Ultramar from outside are just like, yep, it's a shit show. Horus has taken over fucking everything. We don't know what the hell is going on with Terra. We've barely made it through the Ruin Storm. Gilliman's like, all right, well, I'm going to preserve what I can of the Imperium and stabilize this region of space until I can figure out what the hell is going on outside of it. I can at least stabilize what I can deal with what I can actually control. All right. Mm-hmm. So let's do that.
That's what you want.
It's like, how is that his secret shame? That's like, it's the exact right thing you should be doing. Like, how?
The lamest
that's like if Britain,
right?
Yeah, it's like if Britain, when they retreated from France at Dunkirk, if they were like, oh, it's our greatest shame that we couldn't, save France. No, you did what you had to in the time. And the French themselves were like, we get it. We're screwed. So you may as well, fight on. Good luck to you type thing, and they did. And then they won the war eventually. It's the same situation, right? Makes perfect sense. And instead, Gilliman and Sanguinius and the Lion, all three of them are like, oh, we fucked up with this. It's like, no, you stabilized the Imperium so that when the scouring occurs, you didn't come into a steaming shit show in the eastern half of the galaxy is basically intact. Well done. You did the job. And not only that, you destroy the Night Lords. Their function, basically as a legion, they're functionless after the Imperium Secundus. You take a huge chunk of the best of the Wordbearers and the World Eaters out of the fight as well. They lost a lot of numbers they could have sorely used at Terra. And it gave Lorgar such an ego complex after he pulled off these Ruinstorm shenanigans that he thought he could usurp Horus as the War Master. So, that's a win-win as far as I'm concerned. All this bullshit has been set up this way in order to justify why Gilliman isn't at the Siege of Terra, why the Ultramarines arrive late to the party. In hindsight, it's like it's just badly written. You can literally just say, "Warp Storm's delayed that shit."
Yeah,
they've used that excuse so many times. You just expect it. Like, the warp is all churned up because of Horus's actions. The gods themselves are intervening here, and the Ultramarines, the Dark Angels, the Space Wolves, they're literally fighting their way through these storms to get to Terra through just like the explorers on the high seas, sailing around the Horn. Master and Commander, chasing the enemy's ship around, the Horn of South America type thing, bruised and battered, they finally make their way through. It's like people would find that narratively perfectly satisfying, I think.
I think so.
It's not giving people enough credit.
I think in terms of Ultramarines, the thing that sets them apart to me, and which is why I think we're going to go with A tier, because the rules are A tier, and I'd say their lore is pretty solidly A tier. But what makes them A tier for me is that whenever they turn up in other people's books, they always act like Ultramarines, and it's always logical, and you always say, okay, yeah, I get that. And First Heretic being the main one, Gilliman does not want to do that to the word bearers, right? And when he's actually struck down by Lorgar, he doesn't get back up, he doesn't get angry, he just stands up and goes, okay, you're done. So I've got a crusade to go and fight. That's like...
an additional point to that, is that they also wait and see the character of the individuals that they come across before they make their judgment.
Yes.
So they don't just condemn Dantiok and his Iron Warriors as traitors. They have an Ultramarine overseer who spends some time on him, and he's like, no, these dudes are loyalist as fuck. So,
they're chill.
Let's bring them on board.
Yeah.
Like, they're willing to do that sort of thing. Yeah. Everything he does is perfectly rational, and it's not overplayed. He doesn't outstay his welcome in the Heresy novel series.
That's true.
Unlike some.
That's true.
It's the polar opposite. It's like, I would say, if anything, the Imperial Fists are the Horus Heresy equivalent of what Ultramarines are in 40k.
Now, here's a point. Now, Imperial Fists are an A tier. Do Ultramarines deserve to go into S tier? Or the Loken tier, as we're calling it? Because
they should be higher
I think their fluff is good
Imperial
enough to...
Fists.
I think their fluff is good enough to pull them up to from A tier to S tier.
I agree.
It's definitely far more consistent than Dark Angels, Iron Warriors, or Imperial Fists. And their rules are very solid. Yeah, I'd be fine with S tier.
Okay. Are you alright with that, Kaifer?
Yeah, I like my Ultramarines in S tier for Horus Heresy.
Absolutely. Okay.
I wasn't confident on the rules, but if they fit, they fit, right?
The next one's definitely going to be rules first, because we'll be here with the lore for a bit. I can guess who it is. It is Space Wolves, ladies and gentlemen. They're finally here. The dickheads of the setting. They're here. Hooray. Let's jump in.
So the rules, like super strong Primarch, a Legion trait, is Lay of the Land.
Legion traits a Legion trait that makes no sense for them. It should be a White Scars Legion trait, and whenever I've brought that up, like in a video I literally recorded yesterday, everyone in the comments is like, yeah, no, that actually makes an awful lot of sense. Their Legion trait is basically they can run and charge. So...
Oh, yeah, super strong. Advance and charge,
yeah. And they can also snap fire when they run, which is neither here nor there, really. Legion Elite units, nothing to write home about. They've got some really good stuff in there. It's not absolute top of the pops, but it is quite strong. Specifically thinking the Varagya Terminators here. If you go the Frost Weapon Thunderhammer combo, you're talking like 5 attack Terminators with all their wounds cause double wounds at a high weapon skill as well, and 4-up invols. Very, very strong, very tanky unit. Their Wolf Priests and such are bullshit because they combine what would be 2 characters for everyone else,
Yeah.
a chaplain and an apothecary. They combine it into 1. So you get the effects of feel no pain, and you get the boosted combat stats from a chaplain.
It's horrible.
Yeah, that's the
for
wolf priest
ridiculously
for ya.
cheap. Yeah, for ridiculously cheap as well. So I mean, the writers just didn't give a toss about balance when they wrote that, because it just becomes such a no-brainer. Like, why would you ever take one of those other options?
This sounds like the
you
quintessential,
would actively handicapping yourself.
It sounds like the quintessential, like, the rules themselves are S tier, but their actual implementation and their balance means they're down in, like, A, maybe even B tier. That kind of a thing. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. And then, like, Lehman Russ, his sword, for some reason, hits as hard, actually hits harder than Vulcan's hammer.
Of course it does.
Strength 10 brutal attacks. Like, it's fucking stupid. Stupid. And he was the same way in Heresy 1. They have a hard on for Russ, a real strong Space Wolves bias. I have an anti-Wolves bias, not because I don't think they're cool. I literally have like 3,000 points of Space Wolves on my painting bench. I'm a big fan of playing everything so that I'm better at critiquing everything on the tabletop as well. It gives me a point of authority to make judgment calls from.
Money where your mouth is.
Exactly right. And I welcome the feedback and the criticism, as certain other companies that earn billions a year should, but don't. I do this for free, remember? So I would go no higher than A, because the implementation is a shit show, even if it is pretty strong. And really, outside of those niches, like, Grey Stalkers and Grey Slayers are good, the Varagya are good, the Primarch is strong, Rights of War are okay. It's really just the, like, if you're playing vehicles or whatever, it's rather much for muchness. Like, I have a friend, Randy, was playing a All Space Wolves tank company. It was pretty underwhelming as far as tank companies go. It's a one-trick pony. It's getting to close combat and hit them hard, because that's where all your bonuses lie. It's very one-dimensional and boring.
Well, I think we can throw the rules of the Wolves into A, because again, that's where we put rules that are really strong but not well implemented, because they're kind of unbalanced, right? So you can go into A.
Yeah.
But in terms of
and
their
then
lore,
we can move them straight from there to D, right?
Yeah, well, we'll see. I don't want to be overbearing on this, because people know how I feel about 30k Space Wolves.
Straight to D. Beautiful.
Because again, in terms of stupid decisions in the Horus Heresy, there's only one character who makes it. Everybody else makes stupid decisions because they're in the moment. Ferrus Manus is like, I'm going to fight full. Come on, we're going down to Eastman now. We're going to go get him. Right? You're in the moment. You're in the war. You're going for it. Right? There's at least that. Red? Yeah, there's at least that. I've seen red. Lehman Russ is the only one who sits down playing chess with Malcador in a nice calm area. He knows what's going on. He knows the Horus Heresy is kicking off. He knows where all the pieces are on the table, and he still acts like a retard. Right?
He's the Dunning-Kruger effect as a character.
You literally have Malcador saying, don't do that because this. We need you here. And this is a compliment to you, Space Wolves fans. If your Legion was at the Siege of Terra, it doesn't happen. Emperor's still not on the Golden Throne. The traitors don't even get anywhere near to Terra. They don't even get to Terra. They're stopped. They're stopped in the Sol System, right? That's how powerful the Space Wolves are when combined with Blood Angels and the Solar Auxilia and everybody else, Imperial Fists, White Scars. Dude, it's over. It's fucking over, right? Him wanting to glory steal and get a little kill in against Horus basically tanked the entire thing for the Imperium. And he didn't even make the decision. He made it in the most Space Wolves way. I'm doing it because I'm a Space Wolf. Go fuck yourself. Right? Space Wolves get away with everything in the Horus Heresy. They go up whacking Primarchs in the face in an honor duel, and Lionel Johnson goes, oh, well, it's just the Space Wolves. What are you going to do? Right? And, he slaps one of them down. That's it. Doesn't do anything else to them. They get away. They give cheek all the time to Primarchs that aren't their own. They call them Jarls. How fucking dare you? That's like a middling rank. Go fuck yourself. If you called Lorgar or any Primarch that, they should rip your arsehole out for your throat. No. Sorry. Who are you? From the entire series, they act this way. They act like absolute pricks.
I will give credit though to Magnus for calling him on that shit. Where in 1,000 Suns, he's like, "Who you think you are to order me around? I'm a fucking Primarch. How about this for a deal? I'll rip the fucking reactor out of your starship in orbit and drop it on you." And they're like, "Can he do that?" 1,000 Suns are like, "Can he do that?" That I appreciate, but no.
Yeah, we can talk some Prospero.
You got your Dungeons and Dragons alignment. Like lawful neutral, chaotic evil. Lemon Russ is lawful stupid.
Yeah.
When he gets to Prospero, he's like, should I kill Magnus? Yeah, fuck that red fucker. I was gonna say even nastier words. Fuck
can
him,
do. We're 2 hours
right?
in, man. You can say anything you want now.
Yeah, fuck that cunt. Fuck that red motherfucker. And just, like, snaps him. Meanwhile, and despite all the evidence to the contrary, no negotiation, of, like,
no
nothing.
petty boyishness, you know what I mean? Like, it's
and then when he's fighting Horus, and it's on the Vengeful Spirit, the walls are literally made of human skin at this point, because they're pretty far on the Chaos path. They're, like, talking about how the fact that, like, there are people merged with the walls and stuff, and, and then he's fighting Horus, he's like, I could end it all right here. But what if he's redeemable? The fuck is wrong with you? You fucking idiot. You just want to reach into the novel and strangle him yourself. He's like, at that point, in the novel, it's like when you watch a horror film and like the person in the horror film is like, they've got the gun off the serial killer and then they decide not to shoot the serial killer. I'm swapping teams. At this point, I'm all Horus, do whatever you want to Russ. I'm on your side. Nothing you do will be too brutal to this character. He is too dumb to live. Just do us all a favor, Horus, and fucking end it, please.
This
guy is a moron.
It's a Legion who are built up to be so powerful at Games Workshop, then got stage fright. Well, how do we keep them away from Terra? What do we do? Like they were the problem Legion, because every other Legion is in the Eastern Fringe. So you can kind of say, okay, they're too far away, a warp storm, shit like that. The Space Wolves are already on Terra. So you're thinking, oh shit, they're there, what do we do? Hey, it's leaves.
Yeah,
It's leaves.
It's another case of Legions and characters acting stupidly, acting without reason, because the writers need to get them somewhere else, right? Which is a common problem with many of the Primarch grievances I have in Horus Heresy. It's like, man, these characters are supposed to be smart. Like, I'm supposed to believe that these are, like, individuals ascended beyond, like, petty, like, baggage, right? And it's just like, oh, no, they're just terrible. This is awful.
I'm also of the opinion that no Legion, even with mitigating factors, no one Legion should be able to just roll over another. And that's my main problem with Prospero. I know, again, we went through this before. I know Maka explained why it happened, but we know that through our privileged reader position, right? We're the gods. We're looking down on this, right? We know all the ins and outs. People in the books don't, right? So I do not think that any Legion should be able to roll over another without even trying, and that's exactly what the Space Wolves do. If they lose some numbers, sure, but not a lot. Like they don't,
When they turn around and they say things like, oh, I'm the Emperor's executioner, and it's like, well, who the fuck delegated that? Because the Emperor didn't tell anyone else that.
Exactly.
He's like, his role in the Great Crusade is, Horus is my War Master, Russ is my executioner. No, the Emperor, just in his typical, just sitting on the fucking fence way that he does. Russ just self-delegated that, like he did with Angron, where it's just like, I'm here to police you just based off my own judgment. It's like, who the fuck do you think you are?
Yeah.
Like the ego, the arrogance, And then he has to sit there and he's just like, actually, I'm a wise and cultured Primarch. I just have a feral facade. Meanwhile, Jagadai Khan is like slamming his fists on the other side of the table going, I'm like you. I want to be out there fighting traitors, but also we need to defend the palace.
But I'm not a cunt.
Why the hell can't you put your own fucking glorious side and do this? The Khan just straight up taking W's here, and Russ is just like, you know what? Fuck your Imperial Palace. Fuck your Melkador the Sigilant, and fuck you. And
I'm gonna go for a nap.
That's his fucking attitude to everything. It's like, I can't fucking hate this guy enough. And then when the incident with the Dark Angels at Garant before ignoring the fight, which the Lion fucking puts him in his place, and he still can't acknowledge it was fair. But prior to that, when they first arrive in the system, his troops start shooting at a fucking enemy starship in this void battle, and the Dark Angels are like, "Do not shoot that starship! Do not shoot that starship!" And they're like, they blow it up. And the Dark Angels are like, "Yeah, we had like 1,000 Marines on board that ship. Like, it was under our control. We'd done a boarding action. Like, we'd captured that vessel. Can you at least say sorry?" And Russ is like, "Oh, sorry." And then, like, literally goes in face to face, like, head pressed up against the fucking Lion's forehead. He's like, "You ever pull that shit again on me, Lion? I'll fucking don't care who you are. I'll beat you up in front of your fucking sons." And it's like, the fuck? He has every right to demand an apology. You just killed 1,000 friendlies because you were fucking trigger happy. You fucking retard.
Dude,
yes,
what
it's
the
so
fuck
likable.
is wrong with you?
Like the lion just they pussied out on that hard because they went, "Oh, no. It was literally like, Russ wasn't looking, and the Lion knocked him out, and then they just started and because Russ was laughing. No. Russ got beat because Russ is a fucking dick.
Twice.
Twice.
He got beat twice in that novel.
And
Because
the
like
Lion
when
is just
but when
better
he
than him.
when he does that. But when he does that, it's like, just let Russ take the loss. Let's just acknowledge that one time at least that he's not infallible. That like he should have taken that heart and being like, "Oh yeah, it was actually I fucked up here."
Yeah, he should get humbled. Like, it'd go a long way to towards his likability.
And people say, "Oh, the Lion's autistic," and no, the Lion's not autistic at all. The Lion just is better than other people, and he knows it, and he doesn't think he needs to owe them an explanation. He just assumes that his word is law because he just knows that he's fucking superior. That's not autism. Autism is not reading social cues. The Lion is aware of social cues. He just doesn't give a shit. He's an asshole.
Even if let's just make the argument that he is autistic. Yeah, he's autistic, and he beat your Primarch twice. Just saying.
Well, they do the duel, and the Lion's like, "Are you fucking serious? Do you really want to do this?" And this is after the Dark Angels have been disposing of the Wolfen for Russ and just not making a deal of it, just not even mentioning it. They're just like, "Look, we're really good with secrets," like, and then then Russ goes him to a duel. So the Lion's like, "Fucking, if I have to," and then he beats him in the duel. And he's like, "Do you yield?" Has the sword at Russ's throat. And then Russ is like, "Fuck this." And then turns into a fist fight. So it's like, he doesn't yield. The Lion thinks, "Oh, it's a fair duel and it's over, right? I've got him." And obviously he's not going to murder him. He's just like, "You yield. You're being beaten in the fight." Then Russ fucking King hits him. Says, "All right, then we're fucking on." Then they have their fist fight. And then Russ is like, "Actually, this is kind of ridiculous." Bonk.
Yeah. I didn't hear no bell.
Like, 2 Primarchs fought that day. One
idiot.
walked away.
Yeah.
And then that's it. But the Lion doesn't make a show of it. He doesn't send off reports to the Imperium. Like, "Russ is a big dick. His men turned into fucking werewolves. Fuck that guy." He's just like, "No, as far as I'm concerned,
by the way,
we're fixed."
One last point on that. Yeah. So the Dark Angel said nothing about the Wolfen. What happened at the Council of Nicaea? With the 1,000 Suns being friends with the Space Wolves. Weird make.
Oh,
you're getting up there and being like,
completely thrown under the bus.
"Oh, these guys over here, they're totally using psychic powers. That's awful. I have always said that's awful. What do you guys do with that rune stuff?" "Ah, no, those aren't warp powers. No, those are special snowflake Fenris powers, and we're allowed to use those. But those guys over there are friends. Yeah, fuck them. We think they're awful. Go fuck yourself. Go fuck."
And then Games Workshop has also added new law which says, "No, the power of friendliness really is a real thing." It's like, oh, for fuck's sake.
Cringe.
As far as I'm concerned, the power of Fenris is like red paint on Orc fucking vehicle.
Yeah. Might as well be. Like, they need to be self-aware. I'm okay if they want to smell their own farts, and I'm okay if the Space Wolves like smelling their own farts. The smelly farts of Fenris. But they should know that they're basically playing fast and loose with that.
So in terms of we did an
painful.
A for the rules. Okay, I know where I'm gonna put these in my own head, but like I'm gonna defer. I'm biased because I've always hated them, so I will defer to your guys' judgment. Is there enough of a kicking in the lore to put them in Dron Grammaticus D tier, or are we going with C tier from A? down to A, down to C.
I'm gonna push for yes because the glaring tactical error that I think Maka laid out with being on Terra before, or no, North, you mentioned it. The siege doesn't happen if Lehman Russ falls in line and the Space Wolves are on Terra, right? That tactical error is so consequential, right?
Yeah.
And then to go through with it and then backpedal right at the end, which causes everything to just be wasted. Like that should be the giant mark of shame Imperium Secundus is in actuality.
Dude,
like,
that's a
that's
really good
something
point.
that should be a terrible
and it's
secret.
not made under duress. That's the point. It's made in a calm, rational. No, this is what we're going to do. This is what we decided to do.
Like that. You know. That's so terrible. So I'm going to say, throw them at the bottom, man. That's awful. Like
if that tier is the bin, they're in the fucking juice at the bottom of the bin.
Fucking hell.
Like their lore is just irredeemably. It's just so. The best way I can put it is someone wrote their own character who they absolutely love, and that character, no matter how wrong they're shown to be, is somehow always right.
A Mary Sue, if you will.
Well, this is a good because we've gone from
worse.
We are in the last three guys, and we're going from what I would consider the weakest legion in terms of being narrative strength to one of the strongest in the Word Bearers. They are very strong in terms of lore. Shall we start with lore? Because I like to do the weaker ones second, to see where it pulls it down to. In terms of lore, they have one of the strongest Horus Heresy books in the First Heretic, and Betrayer too, but Betrayer is also World Eaters. I would actually put them.
That's their trilogy, right?
Yes, I would actually. Well, the duology, yeah. I would put them actually in S tier for their lore. Again, everybody but Erebus, because fuck Erebus.
Well, look, no one likes Erebus, but I think he's supposed to be unliked. So it's fine.
I'd drop him down to A personally.
But why?
Because glad you asked. So two main factors. Basically, I don't like the ADB Mary suing of characters like Argyle. I find it a bit cringe. I know Argyle is well loved by many people. I think it's just a bit too far in that direction. The same way that I slammed Procol Dawn earlier and several others, including Lehman Russ.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I also think the greater sin here, though, than that particular minor sin, is what happens to the Word Bearers prior to the Siege of Terra in Slaves to Darkness, where Lorgar just decides, you know what, Horus is too weak, I should be the man for the top job. And then Horus says no, bitch slaps him, beats him into the fucking ground because this is Chaos superpowered Horus.
Yeah.
And then says, no, you and the Word Bearers can fuck off. I don't want you to help me at the Siege of Terra. You're exiled. And then it's only...
250,000 Marines you're just exiling there, by the way. That's not a small amount.
Yeah, of the most ardent believers and his principal, demonologists as well. So that the only one that ends up going to the Siege of Terra with Zardu Layak and a small force of Word Bearers.
Look,
very small force.
Another instance, yet again, of two Primarchs acting stupid. We need the Word Bearers to not be there, or else the traitors are too strong. That's how that reads to me. Terrible. Yeah, so Word Bearers lose points for that. Sons of Horus also lose points for that. That's awful.
That convinced me so hard. That's B tier lore. It is because it doesn't matter how good your book is. If your later events are tarnished, in such a way like that, it doesn't really matter. And I never really saw Argyle Tal. I'll disagree with that point. I didn't really see Argyle Tal as being too powerful. Whenever he fights at Custodes, he's put in his place, within seconds.
Oh no, it's not about being powerful. It's about the you get the special Custodes weapon because you're just so fucking good.
Well, it's kind of like that with what's his name, Solomon,
and he the Primarchs. Yeah, but the Primarchs like grind his pepper as well. Even Angron's nice to him, you know. It's just like
Yeah.
everyone loves him except for Erebus, though. And see how evil Erebus is, because Erebus is the one who kills Argyll Tal. Boo! We don't like Erebus.
Yeah.
Fuck off! Don't
Yeah, it's a bit,
try and
lame.
shallow manipulate me. I'm not that easy.
Yeah, I think with I'm definitely that easy. But like in terms of like an Erebus, so the Erebus point is not that he's evil. I think Kyver touched on that before. That's not my point. He being evil and being hateable is fine. There's a thing in wrestling called heat, right? A wrestler has heat with the crowd. It means that he's getting a reaction, okay? So honest heat is somebody like people love to hate you. Boo that guy, right? That's how Erebus should be. But there's a thing called go away heat, where they literally fucking hate you. And they're like, no, we're sick of you. You're lame as fuck. Get off our televisions this instant, right? That's Erebus to me now. Like, it's literally now. I used to love hating this guy in the original trilogy. Like, yeah, great, cool. Love to hate this guy. He's messing everything up. Cool, brilliant. Even in parts of First Heretic, brilliant. He's so manipulative. Good. He gets rid of Argyll Tal. Fine. No, I see that because, yeah, okay, you're going to stop Kharn from reaching his destination. Fine. Okay. But it's the later stuff they end up doing, and the Loken stuff they end up doing, where I'm just like, okay, dude, this is too much. I don't want to ever hear about this fucking character again. I just don't. I don't find you very interesting. Whenever you're on screen, I know you're just going to do the worst shit available. You're going to do the most frustrating shit for the reader, right? It's an author stand-in. He's not there doing things because it's for the greater good of chaos or for greater good of what he wants to happen. He's doing things to piss off the audience because they want you to hate Erebus. That's a shit character.
Yeah, they've...
you know,
what about
a kind of Flanderization in a way, right? Like
exactly that. We're really well put. Yeah,
and then
exactly
now it's just a meme.
Yeah.
Well, look at some of those things he does. Replace him with Cor Ferron. You've got another good word bearer's character who would be ideal for doing some of those dastardly things.
I love Cor Ferron, man.
And they don't really utilize him for anything, which is a shame. Because, if it was him instead of Erebus on the Vengeful Spirit at the end, you'd be like, oh, okay, this guy's just as much of a dick.
Yeah.
But no, it's like you basically just don't see Cor Ferron after, the betrayal at Kelth. He's just off being chased by, Marius Gage through the cosmos or something on some kind of Star Trek. That's a double-ended joke.
Are you guys... Sorry, go on, Kaifa, sorry.
No, I was just going to mention, if we're wrapping up, I do think it's worth mentioning that Lorgar he starts off as a very weak Primarch and then comes into his own. Even though he's not the most skilled in terms of, combat against, someone like Korax, he still does the noble thing. I think it's a nice little character arc that's tied up with a good bow in the books he has leading up to the cringe that comes later.
I know Maka said it was a negative kind of thing when he's going against Horus. I actually think that's the most Lorgar thing you can do. He's so up himself. He's so sniffing his own fart at that point that he thinks he can pull it off. Do you know what I mean?
It's more the fact that he's laid out this huge, great plan for chaos and then just decides to throw it away in the last 5 minutes before the Siege of Terror.
Yeah.
It's not built up in any other novel. They drop it like a hot turd in Slaves to Darkness. It doesn't work. Just purely around because of that particular narrative, It's like with Horus and the Sons of Horus. It's like really good foundational lore, awesome first few books, and then the later books just take a dump over that legacy, and it's like, oh,
yeah,
okay, so
it's a fair comparison.
Like when you it's like RoboCop 1 versus RoboCop 3, where you're like, ooh, it's got a jetpack now. And there's Robot Samurai. Robot Ninjas.
Shall we say B tier for lore for now?
Yeah, I think that's an okay average. Maybe like the upper end of B tier.
So how about
and
rules?
I'd be putting them there for rules, and I'd be putting them there for rules as well. Their rules are not very impressive on the tabletop. They're not bad. They're not great. Never drop below leadership 6. Can take corrupted subtypes, which have some interesting rules, mostly negative, with a few positives in there. Access to some interesting characters. They got the Galvorback and the Marigal, which are your possessed Contemptor Dreadnought and possessed first generation possessed Marines. Zardu Layak and his band, the Blade Slaves. They're all cool. Yeah, rules are fine. They're exactly middle of the road. They're kind of the level I wish many legions were at, to be honest. I think they work quite well. Not like insanely overpowered.
Okay.
Which is nice.
So, second to last legion, World Eaters. World Eaters.
If it was only... Alright, so the rules are pretty trash on the tabletop. +1 attack on the charge. Nothing to boost their morale. You think like a bunch of crazed berserkers would have like morale bonuses? Yeah. No, they don't. So they can run from fights and be run down, which makes no sense. You think they would just ignore the blows coming in until they died. But here we are. They've got one particular weapon that was written by a potato and is therefore the default weapon on one particular unit, Rampages. They take the Felix Blades. It gives them Rending 4+ and Strength 6, I think it is, on the charge. So... because of Furious Charge and +1 strength from the weapon. So wounding Marines on 2s, hitting Marines on 3s, and on 4s, ignoring their armor saves with a shit zillion attacks. So often people just spam a maximum number of those units that they can with jump packs, deep strike them, run them at enemy, profit. And it's such a one-trick pony. Outside of that, like the Red Butchers are some of the worst Terminators in the game. They're very expensive and can be beaten by regular Terminators of any other Legion, which is hilarious.
How embarrassing.
Well, they get like they neg 1 to the strength of incoming attacks for the to wound roll, but not neg 1 strength to the actual attack itself. So if you hit them with like a power fist, it's like, this counts as strength 7 for wounding me. So you still wound me on 2s. And it's still instant death. And they don't have weapons that can really kill other Terminators. They've got either lightning claws or they've got power axes. Which, yes, they can hurt other Terminators, but other Terminators are swinging back at you with things that cause you to take double saves and instant death. So, guess how that fight goes.
Is this another Raven Guard thing where other factions do what you're supposed to do really well, better than you?
Yeah, it's one of those situations. So they suck. Angron's okay, rules-wise. Khan's okay, rules-wise.
Okay.
Their rules are just kind of trashy this edition. There's a few changes I would make, I've suggested in another video, that would fix a lot of that feel. So I think they're probably a C tier for rules.
Yeah, I was going to say C tier for now,
functional.
Yeah.
They're functional, but it's fucking barely functional.
So in terms of lore, I'll probably go first in this one, I guess. But in terms of lore, I'd say World Eaters are one of the weirdest, strongest factions in Horus Heresy for me. There's zero fat on their story. It's mostly about Khan and his relationship with Angron, as it should be really, because he's the first captain. He's the equerry. He's the of the assault company, the 8th assault company. And it's about their general fall to chaos. Now, the problem is the Butcher's Nails. That has been the big bugbear around this Legion for a long time. I think the way that they're introduced to the Legion is quite typically convoluted, and that is something that happens across the board in Horus Heresy, the way that it's introduced. Everyone fights over it, and eventually the ones who want to be murdering psychopaths end up winning. I never really got that. I think it's a really good example of Lost Boys Stockholm Syndrome. That's what they should have lent into in terms of the World Eaters. They kind of do that because remember what Angron is like with his gladiators. He has somewhere where he belongs, where he loves these people, and he never gets over losing them, right? Well, that's the kind of attachment that the World Eaters have towards Angron, and he never realizes it. That's the tragedy of it, right? They have the same attachment to him as he has to his gladiators. That's why they do the Butcher's Nails. They would have done. I loved their interactions with each other. Not Lotara, you feet-liking weirdos. Not her. I mean, like the actual world eaters themselves when you have the old dreadnoughts talking to Angron like he's a piece of shit because they're still wearing the dog colours. What were they called? The warhounds, right?
Warhounds.
They're still wearing those colours, and Angron's like, "Oh, you're still wearing the old colours, you old bastard," you know. And it's fun. These are the grizzled dudes who just like chop each other to bits and the gladiator rings and shit. You know, it makes you wistful for the earlier times when you had Sigismund in those fighter pits with Khan and shit like that. You know, it would have been pretty cool. And to see their descent is quite tragic, and that's how it should be for a one of the Marker legions of the Chaos Gods. I also think they're not overpowered as well. I quite like that. You know, they're not really shown as doing ridiculous shit. They don't really get involved in other people's books unless they actually share space with them, i.e. the word bearers. And I think the characterization of Angron's pretty good too. He has flaws, man. You know, when he loses, it's because of his flaws. It's not because he's not strong enough. Because he's a fucking psycho, right? He loses to Perturabo because he's a maniac. He loses to he beats Lehman Russ, but then loses the battle because he's a maniac. His flaws cost him every time, and when he fights Sanguinius, it is really tragic when Sanguinius goes to pull out the butcher's nails, and Angron panics and says, please don't do that, right? Not because he's going to die, but because it's the only thing stopping him from confronting what he's actually done, right? Dude, that's some good, right? That's some good shit right there, right? It can be done in the Siege of Terror. So, again, I really like Betrayer. I think it's a really good book from start to finish. Again, zero fat on the World Eater storyline. I'd be tempted to put him in S tier for lore, but I'd be really interested to hear what Kiefer has to say, because maybe it's different, maybe it's the same, I don't know.
Similar. I'll kind of go through the same plot point. I think I have a little bit of a different Siege, but overall, yeah, World Eaters, I think, have a really good characterization. Angron being a damaged Primarch from the jump allows... It's much more easy... It's much more tasteful for Angron to make irrational decisions than other Primarchs, right? Because of his current status, right, with the Butcher's Nails. He gets it's like a writer's dream, almost, right? You can you can get him to kind of do whatever you want if you dangle the right key in front of him, right? Mm-hmm. So I have no problem there. I think his fall to demonhood is probably one of the best of his brothers. Also because he has less of that personal agency. Like, he doesn't have the expectation to act and make a rational assessment because of he's Angron, so his fall is super tragic. It's something put onto him. It's something that's in a way inescapable. I like all of that, and I like the Karn and Argyltal POV characters, as you get a good sense of you can really empathize with Karn when he's like looking at Lorgar of all Primarchs, looking at it with admiration through the word bearer's eyes, right? He's like, wow, look at your Primarch. He's like, that's what a Primarch's supposed to be. Right? Yeah. So it definitely hits. This on the Siege stuff, I mean, I guess I don't know if it's because I didn't read the Siege of Terra because I was kind of checked out a little bit from the whole...
Don't blame you.
The baiting of it all, and then in each book, like, it just keeps going on forever and ever, right? So I just didn't bother. So you can kind of clarify this for me, North. But is it the case where when Sanguinius, because my original position on the Sanguinius, just dumping on Angron, like, Sanguinius can beat him, that's fine. I don't love the idea of seeing Angron cry. I think that does something, like, it's behind it's like seeing the Wizard of Oz. Like, I don't think we should ever see Angron cry, personally.
Well, he didn't cry.
But is it the case, like how you described? Okay,
no,
yeah.
He didn't cry. No, he kind of begged to, don't do that. Don't do that. Please don't do that. Right? It was kind of like that.
And because it would, in that moment, allow him to make that kind of... He would see with clear eyes.
Yes.
That's the kind of... Yes. Okay, yeah. So if that's the case, then, yeah, I take back everything I said. I don't dislike that. I guess the Lotaro stuff is lame, but she's like so ancillary. I don't even consider her like part of it.
No, and she gets her comeuppance in the end. There was one good. There was one
Yeah.
good scene where she's phoning down to Angron on a planet somewhere, and they're fighting Titan legions. And she says, "Angron, are the Titan legions down there?" And the way the guy does the voice is so funny. He goes, "Yes." Yeah, he's like, "Okay." She's like, "Okay, how many of them?" He goes, "Some of them, all of them. I don't know." Just puts the phone down on her. It's like, this is so funny. It's like, yeah, go on, Angron. You fucking got no time for this bitch.
Nice.
So, I think it would
Yeah.
even out to, what will we, C tier and then S tier. So, unless you've got a, do you have a problem with them being around there, Mako, being around up there somewhere?
I think they're probably A tier by the time you average out their fluff and their underwhelming tabletop rules.
Yeah.
If they're if it wasn't for Saren, there'd probably be a strong enough case to move them all the way up to S.
I'm the
some
same.
moved from.
Yeah. Dude, we're not feet people. What can we say? We're not into feet. Anyway.
Yeah. I don't need my Fire the Ursus Claws porn this evening.
No. All right. White Scars, our final legion. White Scars.
Double S again.
Oh, really?
I don't know how they are in the tabletop, to be honest.
No, they're trash on the tabletop. Well, they're not trash. They're probably C tier on the tabletop.
Is this because Space Wolves do what they do better than they do? Another one of those.
Their ability is +1 movement.
Okay.
So when you got Space Wolves do run and charge, and it's like you get +1 movement, which is funny because the Emperor's Children have a Rite of War, the Maruskara, which is until they bring on reserves, their whole army gets +1 movement in addition to the regular Emperor's Children rules. And there is no rule that says you must have units in reserve. So if you don't have any in reserve, you're just always +1 movement. So
Awesome.
They combine White Scars and Emperor's Children rules for free. It's stupid.
Yeah, bad call.
Yeah, so, but their units, even in 1, were really fun. Like the Golden Keshig are their jet bikes. They're these artificer armored jet bikes with this interesting Kontos power lance. Essentially glass cannon, the most glassiest of glass cannons you can think of. If this thing whiffs it after that charge, they're screwed. But if they succeed on the charge, then they carry the day. Huzzah. I love that. It's such a high risk, high reward strategy. It's so in line with the White Scars. Like, pick your moment to strike hard, strike fast, get out of there. Like, that's so them. I love it. The Sagimazan Rite of War is a lot of fun because it's like, yep, you're this is for the guys in the Legion who were going to side with Horus rather than execute them. The Khan is like, no. That after conferring with his librarian, which we'll talk about later, is like, that would be stupid. These guys want redemption, so let's give them that chance. Go out and fight and kill enemies for us. And there's a Rite of War, a set of rules around doing that. Awesome. They fall down on the Primarch because of Games Workshop writing again. He has a lower weapon skill than like Rogel Dawn, than Conrad Kurz.
Oh, terrible.
This is the guy modeled after Genghis Khan, the greatest conqueror in human history. It's like, his weapon skill's 7. Like, Sigismund has the same weapon skill. Causwain has the same weapon skill. Khan has the same weapon skill. Lucius has the same weapon skill. So he's the same weapon skill as Space Marine characters. In addition to that, he's...
Right.
Yeah, this is just off the top of my head, sorry, all these rules.
Wait, does
my
the law
books are
say
out
he's
in
the
another
best
building.
swordsman? Like, I swear to God,
No, it's not that he's the best swordsman, but he does say that he would beat Fulgrim in a duel, which of course gives us the greatest burn of the Horus Heresy, the most damage done to any one person, including the Emperor's fight with Horus.
Yeah.
Which is, he goes, I heard you do strange things to your ships, referring to the Khan modifying the engines to go faster, and he goes, I heard you do strange things to your men. So Fulgrim was particularly butthurt by that. His Sujitsu pattern jet bike is, I think what it's called, has 2 heavy bolters. And it's like, yeah, it's armed with 2 heavy bolters, they're twin linked, blah, blah. Yeah, you can only fire 1 because they forgot to write the rule in that allows him to fire more than 1 weapon.
That's
terrible. And no errata for that? No,
you don't be silly. Horus Heresy.
Awful.
Yeah.
Just pathetic.
So it's one of several times they've done that sort of thing. And yeah, it's very funny. So not giving him the appropriate weapon skill. I think if you're going to give it to guys like Dawn, you should be giving it to him. I'm not saying that Dawn should be 8, but it's like, well, if you're going to do that, like, come on, this is clearly a close combat Primarch personified. Like, all the pictures you see of him, it's him wielding that big Talwar sword, that big curved sword, synonymous with who he is. They're based on Mongols. These guys, they conquered the world as far as they're concerned.
Yeah.
It's just so weird. So their rules are pretty low tier. They're not unplayable. Like, the plus on movement at least gives you the ability to do some interesting, you can get yourself into slightly more advantageous positions, for example. Using that speed. So if you can play them smart, it rewards you, but it is definitely it's on that cusp of being trashed here in rules.
So that would be
think
C,
how
then,
little you get.
Playable, but shit.
When you got Dark Angels, get a special rule for every single wing type, and you can pick which one you want to do at the start of each game, And you got Imperial Fist, the entire army gets +1 to hit with all bolt and auto weapons. That's assault cannons, predator auto cannons, bolt guns, all of that kind of stuff. And then this guy's yeah, you just get 1 inch of movement. It's very underwhelming. So yeah, rules wise, they're a C, borderline D.
But now comes the redemption. No.
The redemption arc.
Yes.
Favorite part.
Dude. Best Legion books in a series in sequential order in the Horus Heresy and it's not fucking close. Chris Wright did a immaculate job. It's almost like he was born to write those books and that's it. That's all he's gonna do now. Literally, I need to write these 3 books, 2 or 3 books for
what is my purpose? You write White Scars.
Yeah, literally. Even if you don't like White Scars, that original start of... We never get to see Legion recruitment. It's such an underused thing, and he did it, right? This guy's recruited into the White Scars. He's open for Sons of Horus, Lunar Wolves, or Ultramarines. No, White Scars. He's these poetry writing motherfuckers. I don't want to join these guys. They suck, right? And then as he goes on, dude, it's a coming-of-age story for a Legionary, and then the Horus Heresy happens. It's an immaculate story from start to finish, just on the quality of the books. Not read Scars, not read Path of Heaven. Dude, do yourself a favor. Go and read these books. Like Fulgrim, they're legitimately good books. Beyond Warhammer, they're really, really good books. And it's
so rare we can say there's no stinkers.
No, there's a scene or two, and I'm like, okay, move it along. Every time that there's a librarian talking, it's okay, I know what librarians are, I don't need to explain it. But they suffer from that sometimes where Chris tries to, explain shit. Whereas if you're a Warhammer fan, you're like, yeah, dude, I'm now 20 books into this series, I know what that is. You know what I mean? But in terms of the actual story itself, the White Scars needed this. As a White Scars fan, this must have felt like lancing a boil. Do you know what I mean? Just oh, thank God. Right, we finally, we know who we are. Kind of a thing. What do you guys reckon? I'm going to stop waxing lyrical about it. What do you guys reckon?
I agree. It's such a strong showing in the Horus Heresy. It's kind of the ceiling, I think. Would it not be?
Yeah, no, I agree. I think even the Khan at Terra, that's when I was thinking, okay, now it's not Chris writing these books. I'm thinking, okay, here we go. Wait for Dan Abnett to take his shit on it because it's something that he didn't do. You know what I mean? Luckily, he hardly wrote him, so that was good. But he acts like Jagatai Khan. And you can, unlike Lehman Russ, as Maka said before, who just fucks off, right? Jagatai Khan still fucks off, but he stays on Terra. And Rogel Dawn goes, you know what, I can't I can't tell my brother not to do this because it's who he is, but I can direct him where to go, right? Lionsgate, mate, get over there. And he's like, right, rev those fucking engine, we're going, boys, right? And that's it, and they're gone. And they do that, and they take themselves out the fight, but they do it in the most cost-effective way. That because Rogel Dawn said, hey, spend your lives over here. That's the best place you can spend them. And Jaghatai Khan goes, say no more, son. Say no more, right? Talawar out. We're going for Mortarion. We're going for that port, and we're taking it back at all costs. That's the shit. That's a Legion acting like it's supposed to act in a combined war zone, in a combined arms way, being used by an overall commander in a very good way, and a Primarch who actually has the humility to be ordered around by one of his brothers. This is how it's supposed to work, you know? Maybe him getting taken out by Mortarion was a bit of a damp squib, but Mortarion at this point's really fucking powerful. Like, you know.
He's Demon Primarch, right? I mean,
yeah.
I'm cool with it.
And he didn't kill him. He just, like, literally, everyone thinks he's dead, but didn't kill him. He literally just, like, disabled him, essentially. Which is the one big weakness, but this is a 40k weakness more than a 30k weakness, is that we know the Khan lives and then disappears much later. This is one of those ones where they could have done it, where, you know, Mortarion drags the Khan into the warp and we've never seen him again. You know, that would have been a much better way of doing it, rather than saying he just chases Dark Eldar around.
He's got a sweet fucking harem, and that's the way it's going to stay. He's not coming back. He's just going to live out his days in his Dark Eldar appointed harem.
Yeah.
And we're all for it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. What has everyone else think? I know, Mackie, you haven't spoken about the law yet. And Kiefer, I cut you off, mate. Sorry. But you have your say as well.
I don't have too much disagreement with what you've laid out there, North. It's I think it's really strong. I mean, I'm struggling to think of what I'm annoyed by, because even in the Siege of Terra, it's not a heel turn where it's like, oh, now he falls on his face, or he's being ridden by someone else and he's acting out of character. Like, it feels in line. Like, I'm kind of like, not kind of. I kind of wish the Salamanders got some of that kind of treatment, you know?
Yeah. No,
that's
you
what
get
you
Nick
want,
Time.
Right? That's what
you get. Nick Time. Oh God. Yeah. I joked about that being its own tier list, like the Chris Rate tier and the Nick Time tier. They're like the two ends of the.
So disappointing. Yeah. The Vulcan Primarch novel is just a waste of paper, as far as I'm concerned. It's so disappointing.
Come on, it's not as bad as Vulcan Lives.
I don't know.
It's an ironic. Yeah,
do you want hepatitis B or hepatitis C?
It's a different kind of bad. Yeah, exactly.
Vulcan Lives in brackets technically.
Yeah, no. So, best novel series where just every novel is better than the last, the whole way. So rare to get that. Fucking yeah, even the Thousand Suns, like it does stuff to help fix Magnus. Eidolon, who's just been a dick in all the novels up to this point, he's redeemed as a character as well. He's shown to be extremely actually good and competent. So it's good for Emperor's Children players, and it shows what happened to like the Palatine Blades and stuff without doing a disservice to them. And then the Death Guard and Mortarion, who get very little screen time, they get incorporated into these novels, and they're extremely competent and dangerous foes as well. And in fact, instead of Jagadai being a total Lehman Russ who's like, oh, every decision he makes is wrong, yet somehow it works out for him, it's the polar opposite. It's like, yeah, the Khan's doing everything right to slow down the traders, but he just has to admit defeat at the end. He's like, yeah, look, it's not enough. I need to get to Terra now. The time has come. Also, the Khan is such a strong character narratively because he doesn't go, oh, I'm the fucking Primarch, I'm better than all of you. No, he's like, yeah, advise me. What do we need to do, like, as a team? How can we solve our fucking problems? Like, he has that wisdom, you know, like with the Sagya Mazan incident where his librarian is the one who says, like, no, don't execute them. Like,
is that the wisdom of a rational man, right? Oh, kills me.
Yeah, he's like, oh, if you had feel like you let down others, what would you want to do? He's like, I want to redeem myself at all costs. He's like, right, so how do you think they feel right now? He's like, oh, shit. Yeah, of course. You know? And then when it comes time, he's like willing to make sacrifices that others just wouldn't. Which, yeah, like I'm not going to spoil the novels too much here. Like, yeah, go read them. Seriously, the best novels in the Heresy, especially The Path of Heaven is the best Heresy novel. I feel that's my personal recommendation. The best Primarch novel is The Hammer of Olympia. The best Heresy novel is The Path of Heaven.
I'd say it's
the
number
most
2
satisfying.
behind Fulgrim, because Fulgrim covers more iconic battles. But yeah, in terms of book quality, I'd say Path of Heaven's number 1. Yeah,
it's just a good book.
It is, yeah.
Regardless,
it's just a really good book. The thing is, though, and this is the final argument for the video. You'll be glad to hear nearly 3 hours in. Is it enough? Where does it drag? Where all of the opinions going to drag the White Scars up from C to somewhere else, right? So
S tier,
really,
100%,
all the way,
because it doesn't have the problem that World Eaters have of like the Latara Sarens and the Mary Sue bromances along the way, and it doesn't have, like, if you can say there is very little fat to trim on the World Eaters, there is 0 fat on the Skull.
Oh, sure.
Like, they're so consistent all the way through.
Whereas
even the World Eaters have a few stories where you're just like, oh, that's a little bit weak.
My point
just those short little stories.
With the rules being as they are, is the lore strong enough to pull the entire thing with the rules, being a taper around their necks up to S tier? Or...
Well, like with the World Eaters, they were both in the C tier for me. Difference being the World Eaters rely on spamming one OP unit with an OP weapon that was badly written. The White Scars, in spite of badly written rules, have awesome glass cannon units that play into them so well. So on a rules perspective, they got the leg up. Okay. And from a lore perspective, they're cleaner.
Way cleaner.
So for me, it tips the scale. It's like there's 2 little points in their favor, But if this was like a wine chart, right, and we're putting things all on the line, these, let's say they're 98% and the World Eaters are 96% type thing, It's like it's that close in it for me.
What do you think?
And it's like what?
Sorry,
what do you think on the closing thoughts?
Yeah, I think they ought to be the ceiling. It makes sense. If we're putting World Eaters up there, they should score higher. They should be at least... I'm not sure how you have it in the tier, but...
There should be a 0.5, shouldn't there? No, this is an A+++, not quite S. But I think
you just put it at the end of A, maybe?
Yeah,
I think they are the ceiling for lore for sure.
I'm so tempted. It's just those 3 that are up there. You got your Death Guard, your Emperor's Children, and your Ultramarines. They're good across the board. That's the thing. They've got really good rules and really good lore. I think you're right. I'm going to put them at the head of A tier, so they're above everybody else. So they're above Dark Angels, Imperial Fists, Iron Warriors, and World Eaters. So they're above all those, and those are strong legions that are above. Is everyone happy with that? I mean, they're going from C to A tier, but if they just had rules that were just, again, baseline rules that were respectable enough to go toe-to-toe with the Death Guard on the tabletop, and you know what I mean, they would be up there in that. Is that fair, do you reckon?
I'm happy with A, but I'd still argue that they could push S, because we had guys like Iron Hands started up in S and went down to D. And they're the polar opposite story. It's like where the Iron Hands rules were super solid. For the White Scars, it's their lore is super solid. But I think top A is fine. I'm not going to argue with that.
Okay, so I'm going to just do a quick rundown of the rankings. All right, so in terms of the bottom tier, the Dron Grammaticus tier, the strongest faction in that is the Iron Hands, followed by Space Wolves, followed by last place Salamanders on the bottom tier.
Oh no, I can't argue against it.
Yeah, unfortunately. In terms of C tier, we have Night Lords above the Thousand Suns. Are we happy with that?
Yes. Pretty hard to argue otherwise. Thousand Suns, where Magnus decided to mano-a-mano fist fight Vulcan.
Yeah.
You remember that scene? I know I'm interrupting here. You remember that scene in X-Men Days of Future Past, where Magneto has to fight Wolverine, and Wolverine has no metal in him because it's in the past. So he just impales him with rebar and then just throws him into the fucking Potomac.
Yeah,
like a
that's
mile
how it
away.
should go down.
That's what Magnus should unfold. Oh, you're immortal and I can't kill you. Oh, okay.
Yeah,
and just yeet him out.
It shouldn't even
yeet him
be
out,
something
you know?
he encounters. Yeah, 100%. Like, it shouldn't even come to that for Magnus. He should just just snap his fingers and get out of here. Like, I don't want to deal with this. Why would I sign up
Why
for
are you trying to fist fight Vulcan?
It's so stupid.
I'm going to fight you in your place of strength. Because reasons.
Yeah.
Alright, so B tier. This might be a bit more controversial. So number 1 in B tier is Raven Guard. Number 2 is Alpha Legion. Number 3, Sons of Horus. Number 4, Word Bearers. And number 5, Blood Angels. What do you reckon?
Word Bearers higher than Alpha Legion, or lower?
Lower, yeah, lower. Because looking at the lore later on, but also looking at the rules themselves, the rules are very, very elegant from what... I will be willing to swap them around, though, if anyone...
No, that's fair. I wasn't here for that. So I'm happy to defer. If it's been settled, it's been settled.
You happy with that, Maka?
I consider them basically Sons of Horus, Alpha Legion, Word Bearers. That's all equally, like, terrible.
You could interchange them. Yeah, you could swap them around.
When the highs are high, they're great. When the lows are lows, they're fucking...
Yeah, that's what that tier is.
Alrighty. A tier. We have White Scars, and I would say White Scars so ahead of the rest that they should, they've got more than one toe in S tier. We've got White Scars, followed by Dark Angels, followed by Imperial Fists, followed by Iron Warriors, followed by World Eaters. What do you reckon?
I'd almost be tempted to move the World Eaters up to between Dark Angels and Imperial Fists.
Okay. Any reason for that?
The lore is just so strong for them. Yeah, okay, they're weaker on the tabletop compared to those two legions, sure. But, I mean, what do you weigh? Like, what do you weigh more? You know?
Yeah.
I feel like the war is just so good for the World Eaters compared to... Like, I'll happily reread a novel like Betrayer. I am not going to read, like, what was that one on Pluto again?
Take your pick, man.
Yeah.
Alfarius. Whereas if, like, it's a World Eaters novel, I know I'm in for a pretty time. So, yeah, I feel like they're just that bit stronger narratively, and I'd like to put them after Dark Angels, but before Imperial Fists. But I'm
okay with that. That's good reasoning.
Even.
Yeah, we can put them right in the middle, and that's fine by me. That's cool. This one might be the last debate, though. S tier. So, where are the Ultramarines, Death Guard, and Emperor's Children? Where are they in terms of the ranking between each other?
Death Guard, Emperor's Children, Ultramarines, I think, is the order.
Yeah, I was going to suggest similar.
I had Emperor's Children, Death Guard, Ultramarines, but if it's 2 against 1, I will swap it around, of course.
Yeah, I was going to put Death Guard, Emperor's Children, Death Guard.
Oh, were you?
I mean, I'm not too dead set on the order exactly. I think Ultramarines are probably higher, but...
I think the clincher for me is... Because the rules are so consistent across them all, the lore is so consistent across them all. Ultramarines have the worst lore out of the 3.
Yeah, they do, yeah.
But I'm going to put the decider down to this. This is what I'm pitching to you. At Terra, Snake Man runs away because he can when he fights Rogal Dawn. Whereas Mortarion goes out swinging against Jagged Eye in a mutual destruction. And that's far more narratively rewarding.
Yeah.
And the Death Guard did it with far less screen time.
Yeah, I've got to go with you on that one. Yeah, that's well put. Got to go with you on that one. I'd say the overall quality of the stories of Emperor's Children is higher, but the logic and the Death Guard's real strength isn't that they get their own novel series or that they get their own story. It's that they augment every other part of the Horus Heresy whenever they turn up. And, MVPs on that one. Yeah, definitely. Okay. So that's it. So we got Death Guard, Emperor's Children, then Ultramarines in the top in S tier, the Loken tier, and we are a minute and a half away from 3 hours. So I'm gonna instruct everybody to go and follow Outer Circle's channel over there. It's going to be in the description down below, and go and follow Kaifa's channel over at What the 40k. We all discuss things like this all the time, and if you're still here after 3 hours, congratulations to you. Let me know in the comment section down below that you were still here, and I'll give you a little heart for thanking you. I'm not going to give you anything else because I'm cheap, but I'll give you that. But thank you for joining me, guys. That's been awesome. And who is it next week? Who are we doing next time?
It is my turn.
Oh, okay. Do we have a topic?
The subject yet?
I was gonna suggest something around for indirect fire, but I actually ended up thinking about it, and I'm gonna turn that into a video on its own. So we'll need to figure out something.
Okay, we'll figure it out.
Need to figure out something.
We'll get it going. We'll figure it out. I didn't realise how this would be as long as it was, but there we go. You know, it's what on. Time flies when you're having fun. But I'll speak to you guys later on, and guys, see you later. Go check out the channels.
Later.
Bye.